Chapter 531. Lu Qing arrived in Songqing 3 hours later than expected. By the time he returned to campus, it was dinner time. The entire dormitory was empty, without a single person in it. He put down his backpack and leisurely went to the cafeteria. He ordered a series of dishes such as shredded pork with garlic sauce and boiled pork slices. He placed them neatly, took a picture and sent it to Yanjika. After eating to his heart's content but alone, he walked in the direction of the martial arts club to digest. The setting sun shone on the Weishui Lake as if it was plated with a layer of golden red. As he approached the stadium, Lu Qing suddenly saw a familiar figure walking out. It was Li Mao, who was in the second semester of his senior year, wearing a thin turtleneck sweater and a casual jacket. "Hi, senior brother Li Mao. Extra training?" He took the initiative to greet him. Li Mao answered with a hearty smile, "No, I've been training all morning. If I come again, I'll be injured. I just finalized the offer and signed a 3-party agreement. I'm a little bit, well, how do I put it? Anyway, I just want to come and have a look." As he spoke, he couldn't help but sigh. "Finalized? Weren't you hesitating before?" Lu Qing didn't continue the sad topic. He changed the topic to something happy. "Yes, I'm going to the capital. I'll take the chance while I'm still young." Li Mao's face showed some complacency, and then he laughed at himself. "After a few years, when I can't afford a house in the capital, I'll take the money I saved and go back to my hometown, open a martial arts club and get married." He had the strength of a top professional 9th pin fighter, and his professional grades were above average. He was quite popular with the companies that had come to the on-campus recruitment and had received several offers. "You're slandering the capital again," Lu Qing joked. Li Mao wanted to say something casually, but when he opened his mouth, he didn't say anything. Many memories and feelings surged in his heart, making it difficult for him to control himself. He took a breath and said with a smile and a sigh, "Cheng, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Coach Shi and all of you. If you hadn't given up on me and kept encouraging me, I would have left the martial arts club a long time ago and become a coward for the rest of my life. Once I encounter a challenging environment again, I will definitely be nervous, anxious and perform abnormally. There's no need for that, Senior Li Mao. You have to work hard to overcome your inner demons in order to walk out of it. We're only responsible for cheering you on." Lu Qing didn't take the credit for himself and waved his hand with a smile. Li Mao couldn't help but laugh. Then he let out a long sigh. 2 years ago, I never even dreamed that I would become a top professional 9th pin fighter and lift the national championship trophy. These 2 years have been like a dream." After sighing for a while, he changed the topic and talked about the new national competition in April. "I still haven't understood the meaning of withdraw. It's the same for Talker and Deng Yang. When the time comes, you don't have to consider me in the competition. Give the freshmen more chances to temper themselves. Don't worry about the Dan stage. Think about it, Lin K was already a professional 9th pin fighter when he entered the school. He only officially broke through at the end of his freshman year. You guys have only been training for less than a year. What's the hurry? Do you think you're more talented than Lin K? Do you think you're more hardworking than him?" Lu Qing reminded Li Mao not to be so anxious. Going from a professional 9th pin fighter to a Dan stage in 1 year was enough to be a Heavenly Son candidate. As for his Dan stage in half a year, others couldn't compare to him because he had a cheating device. Li Mao nodded slowly and said with a self-deprecating smile, "That's right. After hearing what you said, we still have a long way to go. Sai, we've been working hard to make it to the national competition and share your burden." "That's not necessary. Our goal this year is to have no goal." Lu Qing laughed and described the actual situation. "Relax. It's normal to take 3 to 5 years to go from a top professional 9th pin fighter to a Dan stage. 8 to 10 years isn't considered long. Many people can't even reach the threshold after 10 to 20 years. They can only watch their chi and blood deteriorate and lose hope. This kind of thing can't depend on a person or a special case. Look at me and Lin Quebec. You have to look at the statistics." Hiss. Li Mao sucked in a breath of cold air. He knew it was difficult to reach the Dan stage, but he didn't know how difficult it was. He only saw his teammates achieve it in 1.5 years. He also saw that Shanbei, Huahai, and Capital martial arts clubs didn't lack new breakthroughs. "Fortunately, I didn't focus on martial arts." Li Mao sighed. "Then I'll set a limit of 10 years, no 5 years. I'll lose my drive if I stay too long." Speaking of this, he asked curiously, "Ching, how many Dan stage fighters do you think our martial arts club will have in the next 2 years?" "Deng Yang is relatively stable. At most 1 year, at least half a year. As for the others, not including our junior brothers and sisters next year, we can have at most 2 dance stage fighters. It's not surprising if one doesn't make it. In fact, the probability is quite high. Lu Qing knew Li Mao's temperament and frankly stated his judgment. This was a university martial arts club, not a top force or an advanced martial arts school where many talents gathered. Li Mao listened seriously and didn't mention this matter again. He chatted with Lu Qing about the recent situation of the martial arts club. At the end of the conversation he suddenly laughed bitterly. Suddenly, I don't want to graduate. I want to stay in university like this. Hearing this, Lu Qing suddenly had many feelings. Yes, these 2 years were so beautiful and memorable. He couldn't bear to leave. Although his heart was in turmoil, he still followed the characteristics of the talker, and said, Senior brother Li Mao, you have to think carefully. You will continue to not have a girlfriend in university. Li Mao was stunned and couldn't say anything. He could only wave his hand and say goodbye with clenched teeth. Really, do I have to make these 2 men cry? Looking at Li Mao's back, Lu Qing complained about him and himself. Then he turned around and walked back to the dormitory. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Kai Xiaoming sitting on the simple sofa in the living room. He was playing with his phone while the TV was on. When he heard the commotion, he raised his head and exclaimed, "Oh, you're back? I admire your perseverance and persistence." Before Lu Qing answered, Kai Zongming looked around and hesitated for a moment. "Qing, I want to ask you something. You have to be honest." I'll confess, okay? I ate the bag of beef jerky you put on the table." Lu Qing raised his hand and laughed. With a kick of his heel, he closed the door. "I knew it was you." Kai Zongming shook his finger in annoyance. After a while, he remembered that this wasn't what he wanted to ask about. He pondered for a few seconds and said, "Qing, how likely do you think I am to comprehend, withdraw, and enter the dance stage before graduation?" Seeing that Kai Zongming was so serious, Lu Qing gave up the joking answer. He thought seriously and said, "It's hard to say. This kind of thing depends on talent, opportunity, and your own understanding. If you can find the strength to move yourself and fight for it, it's hard to say this semester, but there's still hope before your senior year. Actually, you don't have to rush. You're only half a year older than me. There's still more than 7 years to go before you're 29. Take one step at a time and your chances of entering the dance stage won't be low." It's as if you didn't say anything. Kai Zongming shook his head and smiled with a complicated expression. I remember you said that you pursued martial arts because you didn't want to repeat your father's life. You didn't want to return to a small city like a pool of stagnant water. You didn't want to be able to imagine what it's like to be 30 or 40 years old when you're only 23 or 24 years old. There won't be many changes. You should seriously ponder about this feeling, this impulse, and see if you can draw strength from it." Hearing this, Kai Zongming suddenly leaned back on the sofa and closed his eyes. He said in an ambiguous tone, "During Chinese New Year, my father had a heart attack and almost couldn't be saved. The doctor said that he was too tired and overworked. He had to take good care of himself in the future. After such an incident, his body collapsed a lot. The company is not only my family's property, but also the livelihood of many relatives on both sides. It's impossible to sell it just like that. Even if we find a professional manager, he might not be able to control those guys. Hey, those guys. If I can't reach the dance stage before graduation, I don't think I can say it in front of my parents as a professional ninth pin drifting in the capital." He described it calmly without revealing any emotion, making it impossible for Lu Qing to comfort him. He could only pat little Ming on the shoulder and say, "So work hard. At times like this, the strong have to change their fate. F***ck off. Can't you be more serious?" Kai Zongming couldn't help but laugh. He was in a better state and didn't talk about what happened just now. He thought about it and said, "I probably don't have much hope of reaching the dance stage this semester. I can only rely on you in the national competition. If you can beat Peng Liyun and Fang Zhirong, little Yang, and I can definitely beat that explosion maniac together." Lu Qing was stunned for a moment. The corner of his mouth twitched. "You really think highly of me? If you can exhaust most of Fang Zhirong's strength, we can also fight." Kai Zongming took a step back. "I'm not the reincarnation of Buddha. Whether I can beat priest or not is still uncertain, let alone challenge Fang Zhirong." Lu Qing answered self-consciously. "Priest? Damn, you've even given Peng Liyun a nickname? TSK, you're not good at giving nicknames. It's not funny at all." Little Ming's attention was quickly diverted. He cheered up and remembered what someone said just now. "Qing, you're exaggerating. My birthday is on June 2nd, so I'm only 4 months older than you. You actually said it was half a year. It's just rounding off. Yeah, is rounding off. But I think you're wrong. It should be 8 months. So, you're 1 year older than me? As the group of people from Songqing University trained hard and Lu Qing went back and forth to America again, the beginning of April came. The new University Martial Arts Nationals was officially held in Huahai. P.S. Looking for recommendation tickets and monthly tickets on Monday. Chapter 532. April 6, Huahai New Era Martial Arts Stadium. The opening match of the National University Martial Arts Competition officially started. Last year's champion, Songqing University Martial Arts Club, accepted the challenge from Guiyang University Martial Arts Club. In the live broadcast room, the host Lu Chang saw that the usually taciturn Wei Buping was irritated by Kai Zhongming during the conversation and lost his sense of propriety. At the beginning of the match, Wei Buping's continuous attacks failed and fell into a passive position. The more the match went on, the more anxious he became. Lu Chang couldn't help but sigh and laugh. This contestant from Songqing University is quite unique. His partner had changed to the poison milk hierarch He Xiaowei. This internet celebrity stroked his beard and said, "This young man has a bright future. He should learn how to cook from me." Don't say that. I really think he has the talent to make a living as a martial arts commentator. Lu Chang echoed with a smile. Xiaowei, who do you think will be the champion of the National University competition this time? If it's not Shanbei, I'll shave all my beard. He Xiaowei subconsciously wanted to say this, but when he saw Lu Qing standing at the edge of the arena with his arms crossed, he unconsciously became calm, and replied in a more tactful tone. Let's put it this way. This National University competition is a competition between the 3 big guys and a bunch of kids. The other teams can only fight for the top 4 in the final ranking. They can hold their heads high in front of their old enemies. Indeed, the Inhuman stage is a big hurdle. And the other martial arts clubs don't even have a professional 6th pin in the Dan stage. Even if they set up a formation, Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and Lu Qing can handle it alone. How can they fight? Lu Chang glanced at the screen and casually commented on the changes in the situation. Wei Buping's strength is higher than Kai Zhongming's, but if this goes on he will lose soon. Haha, Guiyang also doesn't have the confidence to win. They put the main player at the end to give the other members more competition experience. A wise man submits to circumstances. He Xiaowei concluded with a mocking tone. Zhang Dongliang is about the same as her. Li Xiaoyuan of Guangnan is said to be a weak 6th pin, but he hasn't participated in the ranking event yet. Shi Meng, a senior, got a 7th pin certificate at the end of October last year. Su Jialan is very talented, but he has just entered the school and hasn't understood the meaning of withdrawing. The 2 families can compete. However, as you said, it's just a fight for the 4th place. Coincidentally, they are in the same group. Whoever wins will be the first to advance to the next round and avoid Shanbei, Capital, and Songqing in the quarterfinals. Yes. He Xiaowei nodded slightly. Among the top 3, Songqing's other contestants are too weak. Overall, they're a step behind. I don't think they'll make it to the finals unless they're lucky enough to draw Huahai or Guangnan. Yes, if Lin Ke didn't drop out, with his current strength of 6th pin, Songqing University would have a good chance of winning the championship. Lu Chang sighed. Unfortunately, there is no if. Sigh, the reserves of Songqing University all have their own characteristics and potential, but they are still not mature enough. They don't even have a Dan stage member. Even if Lu Qing can beat Peng Liyun or Ren Li, it won't change the final result. Oh. In Shanbei, Fang Zhirong is a weak 6th pin. Bernhard has the strength of an 8th pin with his supernatural ability of air explosion. Jiang Kongchan of Capital has improved quickly and is already a weak 7th pin. Jiang Jingfeng is short of credits and delayed his graduation. He is a top 8th pin. What can Songqing University do to change the result? We believe in subjective initiative, but we also have to respect objective reality. He Xiaowei's comments were always full of passion, making people want to beat him up. Hey, do you think Jiang Jingfeng delayed his graduation on purpose? To get a taste of the championship? As soon as Lu Chang finished speaking, the situation on the field was clear. Kai Zhongming had won the first round of nationals for Songqing University. He Xiaowei sneered. Who knows? But even if they delayed their graduation on purpose, their chances of winning the championship are slim. Peng Liyun is weaker than Ren Li, and Fang Zhirong can beat Jiang Kongchan and Jiang Jingfeng by himself, not to mention Bernhard the explosive maniac. At this point he couldn't control his primitive strength and raised his voice. Tell me, how can Capital win? Oh. If they win, I'll shave off my beard, no, all the hair on my head. What kind of deep hatred do you have with Shanbei? Lu Chang couldn't help but laugh. Was it necessary to poison them like that? He Xiaowei quickly explained, although I'm called the poison milk hierarch, it's only sometimes. I can't say that the sun rises from the east and it will explode with a bang, right? Shanbei will win the championship just like this. There's no doubt about it. Okay. Lu Chang turned to introduce the second round of the competition. At the end he said emotionally, this year's competition is indeed very clear, but it's definitely the most memorable one to watch. 3 Inhuman University students duel. No one has ever done it before and it's hard to find another one after. As they graduate or leave school early, such a glorious scene can't be replicated. In the following match, student Kai Xiaoming almost completed the great feat of 1 versus 2. However, he encountered the tough and determined Zhu Ning and was unable to seize the opportunity to win. Deng Yang, on the other hand, easily defeated his opponent who was in a weakened state. He fought fiercely with Guiyang University's leading player, Chen Mo, who was at the peak of rank 8, for a long time but was unable to turn the tables. With Lu Cheng's appearance, the opening round came to a close. In the next few days, Capital, Huahai, Guangnan, and Shanbei showed up one after another and won all of them. Peng Liyun and Renli didn't even have to fight. The whole group stage was peaceful. The teams led by the 3 Inhumans advanced triumphantly, while the rest of the martial arts clubs competed for the rankings. Only the battle between Huahai and Guangnan was eye-catching. In the end, thanks to Xing Jingjing's outstanding supernatural ability, Huahai narrowly defeated Guangnan and won first place, making the latter face Shanbei in the quarterfinals. In the battle between Shanbei and Guangnan, Peng Liyun finally put himself in the list of fighters, guarding the end. In the first round, Fang Zhirong fought hard against Li Xiaoyuan. After several reversals, he barely defeated his opponent, but he was close to his limit. In the second round, he didn't exhaust Ximeng much, but Bernhard was badly beaten. Peng Liyun, who hadn't fought since the end of August last year, made his first appearance. He defeated Ximeng and Su Jialan effortlessly without showing his strength. After Songqing University, Capital, and Huahai defeated their opponents and entered the quarterfinals, the old man Fang Jinju came to the center of the arena again for the final drawing ceremony. Shanbei University Martial Arts Club. He took out the ball and showed it to everyone with a smile. Then, while everyone was holding their breath, he drew Shanbei's opponent. Deng Yang, Kai Zhongming, and He Zi interlocked their fingers and held their chins, murmuring softly, Imperial Capital, Imperial Capital, Imperial Capital. If Shanbei draws Capital, we can face Huahai and have a great chance of entering the finals again. Ha! The old man Fang Jinju looked at the ball and shook his head with a smile. Then he gathered his qi and said loudly, Songqing University Martial Arts Club. Last year's champion and runner-up met in advance. Phew. Lu Qing heard dejected sighs around him, but he wasn't disappointed at all. If they could enter the quarterfinals this year, they would have achieved their goal. At least they didn't let their martial arts club fall off the cliff. He turned his head subconsciously and looked to the other side, only to see Peng Liyun looking at him. His temperament was refreshing, his facial features were clean, and he didn't look like he was in a trance. When their eyes met, the radiance in Peng Liyun's eyes converged. It was as if a thick and terrifying silver lightning had struck down in the dark night, blinding Lu Cheng's vision. However, Peng Liyun didn't back down. His eyes seemed to contain a raging snowstorm, extremely cold, extremely fierce, and extremely powerful. Lu Qing couldn't help but shudder. After looking at each other and smiling, they both turned back with satisfaction, looking forward to the competition in 2 days. This was the 3rd time they had fought each other. Buzz buzz buzz. Lu Cheng's phone kept vibrating with messages. Go Pikachu. Beat him, beat him. Yenjika said with a clenched fist. Beat him. Hipster said concisely. Let's break the Taoist spirit. Renli was enjoying the show. Just as Lu Qing finished replying and was about to put away his phone, a message from a familiar number came in. Brother-in-law said, good luck. Damn it, I almost thought your number was ghost. Lu Qing laughed and replied with a fist bump emoji. Then he heard the old man Fang Jinju's voice in his ears. Semifinals, Shanbei vs Songqing, Capital vs Huahai. P.S. This is a transition. Chapter 533. 2 days later at 7 o'clock in the evening, the New Era Martial Arts Stadium was flooded with a large number of spectators. Even though the scalpers had inflated the ticket prices, there was still no lack of people asking for tickets. In just 10 minutes there were many transactions. Even the posters with pictures of Lu Qing and Peng Liyun facing each other while holding hands were very popular. If it weren't for the security guards at the entrance, all the pictures would have been taken away. The big screen in the arena was playing highlights of Lu Qing and Peng Liyun's matches in the past few years. Unfortunately, the most recent highlights were from 8 months ago and lacked their recent performances. This made the spectators even more excited and full of guesses. The spectator stands around the arena had been cleared to prevent damage from the aftermath of the inhuman battle. At the same time, the Huahai city government had specially mobilized a group of martial artists from the police force to stand guard at various key locations to prevent accidents. When Peng Liyun heard the clamorous cheers echoing endlessly outside, he snapped out of his daze in the changing room. He looked around at Coach Huang Qing, Second Commander Fang Zhirong, and the others and said with a faint and clean smile, "I'm not going anywhere. I'll be the first to go." His voice wasn't loud and his aura was gentle. Fang Zhirong was inexplicably stunned and forgot his original thoughts. He nodded in agreement. Instructor Huang Qing, whose hair was completely white, nodded slightly and didn't object. As for Bernhard and the rest, they didn't object either. Peng Liyun retracted his gaze and looked at the TV screen in the locker room, his thoughts drifting. At first, he planned to retire from the university martial arts circle after winning his third championship and compete in professional competitions. Who knew that he would be injured by Lin Ke last year and lose his honor? Thus he changed his mind and stayed to fight for another year. In the past 6 months, his life was completely different from his original plan of fighting a high-level battle every week. He was lazy and leisurely, almost not fighting at all. Logically speaking, this would cause his martial arts to regress. However, Peng Liyun experienced something different from the past. He really did settle down and gain something different. And now, it was the season to test this gain. Thunder is yin and yang, one is still and one is active, that's the right way. Extreme activity turns to silence, and extreme quietness leads to action. I've been quiet for long enough. Peng Liyun turned his head subconsciously and looked at the door of the locker room. His line of sight seemed to pass through the door and onto the arena, onto the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. I'm looking forward to it. He let out a sigh spontaneously. Every joint, every muscle, and every acupoint in his body suddenly exploded. They were heavy, powerful, and humming terrifyingly, like rotating turbines and gathering thunder. Hearing this, Fang Zhirong, Bernhard, and the others looked at each other in fear. Spring comes with a clap of thunder, and all living things come to life. In another locker room. Although Deng Yang, He Zi, and Wang Dali didn't think they had done anything wrong, they looked at Lu Qing with guilt and self-blame. Peng Liyun will definitely be the first to fight. Even if little Yangzi and I, 2 weaklings, fight together, we won't even be enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. Qing, it's all up to you now. Kai Zhongming broke the relatively oppressive atmosphere and said in a self-deprecating manner. You're a weakling, don't drag me into it. Deng Yang protested. Next year I'll definitely be a mighty one of the dance stage. Lu Qing listened with a calm smile. He picked up a pen and paper and quickly wrote down the list of fighters and the order of the fighters. Lu Qing, Deng Yang, Kai Zhongming. He passed the paper to Yan Shaoling beside him and said with a slight smile, Sorry to trouble you. Li Xiaowen found a very good job and went to the company for an internship in February. The menial work of the martial arts club was basically handed over to a self-proclaimed reliable sophomore girl. Yan Shaoling took the list of fighters and nodded excitedly. She rushed out of the door. After a muffled bang, she squatted down with hands on her forehead, eyes full of tears. Who didn't close the locker door? Are you okay? Mu Jingyan asked with concern. He Zi scolded with disappointment. Don't you watch where you're going? Yan Shaoling looked up with grievance. Normally with my height I shouldn't have hit that spot. Everyone was speechless and almost burst out laughing. The heavy atmosphere was swept away. How many centimeters taller are you today? Yi asked without thinking. Yan Shaoling was enlightened. She slapped her thigh and said, Oh my God, so that's how it is. Everyone couldn't help but laugh as they watched the short, petite figure flash out of the locker room. F*** King retard. Out of the door Yan Shaoling paused. She didn't rush to the supervisor station. Instead, she took out her phone, entered the forum, and posted a post. He smiled at me. He said sorry to trouble you. F***CK, are you crazy? Unparalleled Dragon King, and the others were shocked. Not crazy, I'm a love-struck fool. Brahmin rolled on the floor. But I'm so envious. In the locker room, Lu Qing shook his head with a smile. He closed his eyes and suddenly recalled every detail of the past 6 months. Strolling in the rain, encountering gods in the void, self-reflection, ambushing Butcher, suppressing him with precision from start to finish, attacking Mizuki's fleet, grasping the perfect timing, daily life at home, warm and sweet, meaningful and lasting, studying physical invulnerability secret arts in the underground of the Ice God sect, gaining insights and comprehending by analogy, after leveling up, facing Brandon and familiarizing himself with new techniques, pondering every day, practicing diligently, finally getting Lament of the Ice Queen ready for actual combat. Various scenes replayed in his mind. Finally, they merged into a furnace and ignited a burning desire for battle. After 8 months, it was time for him to give it his all again. I can't wait. Lu Qing suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the door. The temperature in the locker room seemed to have dropped to freezing point, making the unprepared Kai Zhongming, Deng Yang, and the rest shiver. But when they touched the skin on the back of their hands, they realized that the temperature didn't change. Everything that happened before seemed to come from the mind, from the heart. In the live broadcast studio, the host, Lu Chang, looked at the scene in the stadium and sighed. Everyone is so passionate. This match is indeed worth looking forward to. Just the gimmick of a battle between the heavenly sons of the era is enough to attract people, not to mention the fact that both Lu Qing and Peng Liyun are bursting with popularity. He Xiaowei chimed in with a smile. Also, this is the first time they are on the same level, fighting at the peak of their strength. In December 2 years ago, Peng Liyun was almost 1 rank higher than Lu Qing, and he quickly defeated Lin Ke in advance. In April last year, Peng Liyun was seriously injured by Lin Ke's self-sacrifice and was not in his best condition. Now the participants of the two sides had been decided. Lu Qing and Peng Liyun would no longer be disturbed by other people, and they were finally at the same level, an evenly matched peak competition. Yeah, this reminds me of the words top of the Forbidden City. Xiaowei, who do you think has a higher chance of winning? Asked Lu Chang with interest. Xiaowei shook his head like a rattle drum. That's hard to say. They haven't fought seriously for half a year. How am I supposed to judge? As soon as he said that, Peng Liyun's fans in front of the screen heaved a sigh of relief. They felt that the dark clouds over their heads had mostly dissipated. As for the audience who liked Lu Qing, they were slightly disappointed. If Xiaowei thought that Peng Liyun would win, that would be cursing his opponent. If he thought that Lu Qing could win, how could one's supernatural powers defy fate? Indeed. They have been accumulating their strength for half a year. I wonder what kind of power they will unleash today. They might both be close to pin 4. Lu Chang lamented. He suddenly thought of a rumor and said with a smile, I heard that Lu Qing won't be returning to Wuxia Club and will be joining Longhu Club in July. Peng Liyun is about to graduate from university and will definitely return to Shangqing sect. I feel like they are another pair of arch-rivals like Dragon King and Warrior Sage. They are the future Dragon King and Warrior Saint? Have you asked Living Buddha Shi Shan or Wisdom King Zhihai before you said this? He Xiaowei snorted and retorted instinctively, even if the living Buddhas of past generations would slow down after reaching physical invulnerability and reach a bottleneck, who knows when Lu Qing and Peng Liyun will surpass them. But what about Zhihai? He has only reached physical invulnerability for 3 years and has already won the title of king. Is this something that ordinary people can compare to? Even if there are coincidences like when Dragon King and Warrior Sage fought in other competitions and both were heavily injured, or when some of the titled mighty ones met in advance and the winner was injured, he might be able to defeat many first pin and titled mighty ones. This is enough to prove his strength. He has already firmly suppressed the other heavenly sons of China. The dates of the 5 major title competitions were staggered. The finals of the Battle of the Kings were usually held at the end of March or the beginning of April. Daxing Temple's Zhihai won the challenge more than 20 days ago and became the new king of the year. He was honored as Wisdom King. That's true, but Zhihai is 4 years older than Peng Liyun and 5 years older than Lu Qing. Strictly speaking, you can't directly compare them, Lu Chang said to the point. Then we'll see in 4 or 5 years. At that time, if Lu Qing and Peng Liyun can reach physical invulnerability, they won't let down the title of Heavenly Son of China. As for the titles, Yi Xiaowei laughed. The host, Lu Chang, was afraid of causing a dispute and didn't want to delve into this topic. He quickly said with a professional smile, All right, the pre-match commentary has come to an end. Let's cut to the off-site interview and hear what the audience has to say. The scene changed to the last line of people queuing to enter the stadium. The reporter handed the microphone to a pretty girl with straight shoulder-length hair. "Hello, may I know which side you support?" "Shanbei. Peng Liyun." The girl answered without hesitation. "What?" the reporter asked. The pretty girl with the aura of a student smiled and said, "I prefer Peng Liyun's personality. He's more handsome." The girl who boldly voiced her opinion blushed. She curled her lips and turned her head to the other side. "What about you?" The reporter saw a girl with a sweet smile nearby. She was eager to give it a try. "I like Lu Qing. He's more manly," the girl shouted after pondering for a long time. After the interview, the director looked at the time and cut the scene back to the stadium. The host, Lu Chang, announced excitedly, "Everyone, the competition is about to begin." At this moment, Lu Qing, who was sitting in the away team's seat, received a message from Yan Zhika. It was a photo of their fingers intertwined and their rings reflecting off each other. "I'm with you." Clenching fist expression, the girl said. 2 against 1 doesn't seem fair." Snickering expression, Lu Qing replied and locked the screen. He passed his phone to Kai Zongming for safekeeping and stood up slowly to look at the arena. On the other side, Peng Liyun took off the white towel draped over his body and stood up slowly. Chapter 534. Lu Qing. Peng Liyun. All of a sudden the sound waves exploded. Countless spectators raised their arms and shouted the name in their hearts at the top of their lungs. It was as if a forest had suddenly grown around the stadium and a fighter jet had swept past. Lu Qing didn't unleash his aura. He walked along the aisle at a moderate pace and slowly climbed the stone steps. He stood on the left side of the referee. At the same time, Peng Liyun also walked into the arena calmly. It was as if he was waiting for the battle to officially start before he unleashed his accumulated strength, imitating the horror of a flood breaking through a dam. Their eyes met and they smiled. Both of them had grasped the other's thoughts. The referee with a half-beard looked left and right. When the electronic clock struck the hour, he raised his right hand and announced loudly, "Talk time begins." Peng Liyun lowered his waist and his body seemed to sway with a natural rhythm. As he swayed, Lu Qing couldn't find any flaws. He looked over and smiled faintly. "I've been waiting for you for a long time." "Me too." Lu Qing smiled casually in response. For the next 2 minutes, neither of them spoke again. They were both counting down the time in their hearts just like a race car. 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds. Peng Liyun's body emitted a low turbo pressure sound. It was slow and drawn out, with pauses and pauses. It made people feel what it meant to be ready to go. 10, 9, 8, 7. Lu Qing's muscles and fascias tightened. The exchange of hot and cold in his body seemed to be brewing into a terrifying eye of a storm. 3, 2, 1. Begin. As the referee swung his right hand down, Peng Liyun's waist sank and reversed in an instant. The sound of turbine compression exploded in unison. His entire body pounced out like a bolt of lightning. His steps made the arena shake rapidly, and the muffled sound of his steps rolled in the hearts of everyone, like the first thunderclap of the arrival of spring. His shadow was still there and the shaking hadn't stopped. However, he had already crossed more than 20 meters and appeared in front of Lu Qing in a flash. Lu Qing's back turned sharply and his muscles swelled. He completed the turn in an instant and circled to the side. He broke through the air barrier, stirring up a strong wind as he smacked his opponent in the face. Bang! The wave, that was strong enough to send a grown man flying, came at him. Peng Liyun pulled his left arm and raised his palm to block his face. At the same time, the silver light in his eyes fell and his muscles flashed. His right shoulder shook violently, and his arm swelled up as he swung it to the side in a condescending manner. Lu Qing straightened his back, clenched his right fist and blocked the attack. Then he would follow up with a crushing punch with his left hand and a low knee kick to gain the upper hand. However, in the reflection of his ice mirror, Peng Liyun's muscles and fascia were completely different from when he was exerting force. It was similar to the situation when he was performing the simplified version of the fighting formula. There was a problem. Lu Qing's heart skipped a beat. The 2 large muscles on his back suddenly bulged and pulled his right arm up. He clenched his fist and punched out. It was as if he was blocking, and guiding. Bang! As soon as the 2 of them made contact, Lu Qing could feel his opponent's extraordinary strength. If he took it head-on, his arm would definitely be knocked away and he would be knocked backwards. His clenched fist suddenly stretched out, and his palm moved diagonally from the bottom to the top. He skillfully diverted Peng Liyun's attack, and although it seemed as if it was as light as the wind, it was actually a very dangerous parry. Peng Liyun took advantage of the momentum to turn his body. He raised his left arm again, and in the flash of an electric arc, it swelled and hammered downwards. The basic martial arts of the Thunder Sect, lightning and fire stance, could stimulate the tailbone and cause an outburst. At the high-ranked Dan stage, there would be a corresponding advanced version of the secret art. After Peng Liyun comprehended Heaven's golden flame, he simplified many of the steps and used pure electric shock to injure the body with extremely strong control. He obtained a technique that weakened the effect but allowed him to use it faster. Bang, bang, bang. He swung his arms, and in the flash of electric arcs, he hammered down ferociously. This caused the surrounding air to condense into layers of dark clouds that weighed down on Lu Cheng's heart, bringing about a terrifying mental deterrence. This also caused the audience to have an inexplicable hallucination. It was as if Peng Liyun had transformed into the god of thunder with a giant hammer in his hand. His upper body was bare, and his bronze muscles were wrapped in electric arcs. Amidst the sweat dripping down his masculine and powerful aura, he swung and smashed again and again. It was completely different from his usual style, and it was refreshing. Lu Cheng didn't dare to be careless. He immediately circulated his qi and blood to stimulate the corresponding parts of his body. Simplified fighting formula. His muscles bulged and he pulled back his arm in a fighting posture. His fist shot out like lightning towards his opponent's giant hammer. He was going to meet force with force and meet force with force. Boom, boom, boom. He exploded 3 times in a row and bounced back 3 times, stirring up an invisible airflow that turned into waves. The electric arcs flickered and splashed everywhere. Boom. Their arms propped up their sleeves, and their muscles looked like they were about to explode. Peng Liyun's explosion was still slightly inferior to the secret technique. His body shook and he took a step back. Just as Lu Cheng was about to take the opportunity to stretch his back and launch a series of attacks to bring the rhythm into his control, he suddenly put his palms together. It was as if he was about to unleash the thunder blade with a thunderous boom. Lu Cheng shifted his center of gravity and immediately turned to the right in an attempt to avoid being struck by lightning. However, Peng Liyun's strike didn't make any sound. Instead, the sound of a vortex spinning madly in his body sounded again. A huge and strange suction force appeared out of thin air, pulling Lu Cheng to the front. In the previous hammer strike, he had secretly left electric arcs, accumulating a layer of single-attribute electric charge on his opponent's body. Now that north and south were attracting each other, it came in handy. Thunder begets magnetism and magnetism begets force. After the suction, Peng Liyun pulled his palms apart, pulling out a silver-white electric snake as thin as a cicada's wing. It was blinding. Pseudo-cloudless thunder blade. However, Lu Cheng seemed to have been prepared. Just as he was pulled forward, he took advantage of the momentum and squatted down. Not only did he dodge the instantaneous electric light in time, but he also threw a punch at his opponent's waist. How could he, who had stepped into the realm of encountering gods in the void and self-reflection, not notice the layer of electric charge on his body? He had been holding back all this time to create an opportunity. Bam! The two of them were less than half a step apart. Before the crisp sound faded, the punch was already close. Cold sweat beaded on Peng Liyun's forehead as he reversed the vortex. The humming sound erupted again. Lu Cheng's punch was getting slower and slower, as though he was caught in a repulsive force field. However, at this moment he snapped his fingers and opened them, shooting out streaks of crystal clear and cold ice soul brilliance. Breaking through the surface with a single point, the force field was penetrated. Seeing that the cold streaks were about to reach his body, Peng Liyun, who didn't feel that everything was fine after reversing the vortex, pulled his spine and pulled his body diagonally backward. The streaks of white streaks brushed past him and covered the surface of his clothes with a layer of frost. Lu Cheng bounced his waist and stood up. Striding forward, he clenched his fist and launched a forward charge attack. Peng Liyun extended his palms downwards and crossed them into a net, firmly blocking the attack. Lu Cheng didn't manage to land a hit, so he took advantage of the situation and turned around, his back facing his enemy. Then he swung his elbow backwards and struck fiercely. With a crisp sound, Peng Liyun's raised arm was swung away helplessly. Once again he took a step back. Lu Cheng had already turned around. He retracted his qi and blood and immediately exploded them. He was about to launch a series of explosive attacks with the precision of a ruler. Left eye soul technique, right emperor yen technique. Alternating, never-ending attacks. However, at this moment, Peng Liyun lowered his waist and swung backwards. Amidst the shaking of the arena, he made a flash attack backwards and dodged 30 meters away close to the edge. Crack. Lu Cheng's explosive Dan force rushed to his feet, causing the surrounding green bricks to soften into powder. Using the terrifying rebounding force, he spread his wings and leaped forward. In the blink of an eye, he had closed in on his opponent. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Peng Liyun displayed his body movements and made a series of turns, stirring up gusts of strong wind, not giving his opponent a chance to gain momentum. Lu Cheng vaguely understood the key point of their fight. On the surface, it looked like they had the upper hand, but in fact, it was a battle of rhythm. The one who could interrupt and destroy the other's momentum and control the changes of speed would have the upper hand and a chance to accumulate victories. Unconsciously, he had a new understanding of the battle of high-ranked Dan stage fighters. After several turns, he still couldn't get rid of his opponent. However, Peng Liyun took the opportunity to complete the outline of the Green Jade Talisman book in his mind. He condensed a thunder snake in his palm and released a powerful bolt of lightning that turned from green to purple. Simplified physical invulnerability move, Thunder Seal, revealed. With the help of the ice mirror, Lu Cheng had already sensed it. He pulled his waist and back, swung his center of gravity and dodged to the side. The lightning struck the ground of the arena, leaving a long, meandering charred mark like a big tree. Peng Liyun immediately counterattacked when his opponent's rhythm paused. He lowered his qi and blood and condensed them into a single point, in exchange for a violent explosion and ferocious rush. Bam! He took a step forward, his right arm swelled and punched. His fist was covered with a layer of silver-white thunder snake, as if he was wearing an exaggerated thunder glove. It was heavy, strong, and fierce. Lu Cheng followed up with force concentration. He pushed his feet together and rushed forward with the heart-drilling hammer, blocking his opponent's fist. Boom! The explosion broke up the electric arc and the impact caused a shock. The two fighters were evenly matched. One was slightly paralyzed, while the other's qi and blood were slightly disturbed. Bam! 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 Peng Liyun kept punching with his fists. When they were evenly matched, he suddenly turned his body and pulled back his leg, creating another bolt of lightning. Boom! 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 His whip leg followed by a knee strike followed by an arm flick followed by a reverse swing, and a reverse swing followed by a hammering with the other hand. The series of attacks flowed smoothly. Every strike burst out with Dan force, spewing out thunder snake illuminating the arena. In the eyes of the audience, Peng Liyun was like the thunder god swinging his hammer in the beginning. Now he had turned into a bolt of lightning, striking again and again, blurring the audience's vision. The Nine Tribulations chain was shockingly powerful. Lu Cheng's spirit was shaken and shook. Fortunately, the ice mirror had been formed. His consciousness was in midair, so he barely resisted and didn't slow down. Relying on a clear understanding of his surroundings and his opponent, he kept bursting out Dan Qi, punching and kicking. Sometimes he used Ice Spirit, sometimes he used Emperor Yin, and fought fiercely with Peng Liyun. Every time they collided, it was like a bomb being detonated, shaking the ground, creating craters and filling the air with smoke and dust. The paralysis was accumulating and the shock was heavy. Although both of them used force concentration to dissipate most of the effects, it was inevitable that there would still be problems. Peng Liyun's Nine Tribulations chain was based on the Nine Heavens fusion, a unique physical invulnerability skill. The chain was tight and the force was continuous. Even if Lu Cheng used 24 blizzard strikes, he was gradually at a disadvantage. Boom! Just as they finished another fist collision, Peng Liyun suddenly pulled his fascia, flicked his joints, and made a rapid attack with overlapping afterimages. Machine God Fist. He took the initiative to control the speed of the change in rhythm. But just as he made the adjustment, Lu Cheng swayed his center of gravity backward, pulled his waist and swung away under the pressure of the fist wind. Not too early, not too late, just right. His punch missed and his pursuit slowed down. Peng Liyun looked at Lu Cheng, who had steadied himself on the ground, and understood that he knew the importance of rhythm. Being in his own rhythm would make the enemy passive. Every move would be restrained, and the more he fought, the more difficult it would be. Up until now, the two of them had been fighting back and forth, and it was a tie again. At this time, the audience came back to their senses and burst into cheers. Just now, Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun were attacking and defending each other, and the whole process was so intense that they almost couldn't breathe. How exciting. Two murderous weapons in human form. Evenly matched. I'm afraid they are close to the level of professional fourth pin? In the live broadcast room, the host Lu Chang blurted out. He Xiaowei nodded in a daze. Yes, but they probably won't participate in the ranking event. When they reach physical invulnerability, they can directly get third pin. Peng Liyun rarely participated in the ranking event, and Lu Qing had only been there once. Relying on their own rapid progress, they easily got the certificate based on the hard standard of the state. Good. Peng Liyun thought to himself, and the fighting spirit in his eyes grew stronger. With a flash attack, he closed in on his opponent and made another strong attack. Good move. Lu Qing was in high spirits and he didn't dodge. Instead, he returned his qi and blood, balanced into a dan and spurted out his force. Then he pushed his feet inward, shook his right arm and turned it into a steel whip and swung it down diagonally. Bam! There was a loud explosion and the ground was in a mess. The two of them swayed and then closed in again, either bombarding each other with blast punches or vibrating Zen hammers. Boom! 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 The two of them fought until sand and pebbles flew everywhere. The deafening sound was completely displayed. They had learned their lesson from before and didn't reveal any flaws. They were evenly matched. At most, one of them would occasionally gain the upper hand, but it would be gone in the blink of an eye. The intense battle made the audience exclaim in satisfaction, and their blood couldn't help but boil. They raised their hands and shouted loudly, both to cheer and to vent. 7 or 8 minutes passed. Even though Lu Qing and Peng Liyun were at the inhuman level, they couldn't help but show signs of declining in various aspects, especially Peng Liyun, who was both mentally and physically affected. He was already showing signs of fatigue. Lu Qing was replenished by the Jin Dan, so his physical condition was pretty good except for his mental state. It's time. With a thought, he controlled his qi and blood, stimulated his body, and used the simplified wholeness formula in exchange for a clear mind. Bam! He stretched his back, stepped forward and attacked. His right fist was surrounded by red and white flames and he punched straight ahead. His momentum was so strong that it overpowered his opponent in an instant. Peng Liyun's mind was slightly shaken. He lowered his arm and punched downwards, hitting the surface of Lu Qing's fist. Bam! Amidst the loud noise, Peng Liyun's eyes flashed with surprise. His forearm bounced back involuntarily, almost hitting his chest. His body couldn't help but sway. Bam! 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 There was no joy in Lu Qing's eyes. He spread out his arms with indifference and combined with the explosion of the Dan stage, he attacked with precision. One punch was crystal cold and the other was heavy and scorching hot. He forced Peng Liyun into a defensive position, struggling to hold on. With the rhythm under his control, Lu Qing suddenly paused in the midst of his consecutive attacks, allowing the flames, force and mental state of the Dan balance to compress inwards, away from the cold and away from the darkness. His eyes turned dark in an instant, deep and indescribable, like a night without stars or moon. Bam! Lu Qing's blood returned to him and he came back to life. He stepped forward with his left foot, swung his right arm, and punched Peng Liyun like a violent snowstorm. Self-created unique skill, Lament of the Ice Queen. Instead of being surprised, Peng Liyun was overjoyed. At the moment his opponent changed his rhythm, he reversed the yin and yang in his body, creating a vortex that devoured each other. According to reliable information, Muko Yamashita had mastered the swordsman formula and had used it on his companions a few times. Therefore, there was enough reason to suspect that Lu Qing, who had close ties with the military, had obtained the wholeness formula. I've been waiting for a long time just for this moment. Although he wasn't sure what had happened to allow him to use the 9 words formula so quickly without the need for hand seals or secret sounds, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. With a bam, Peng Liyun crossed his palms and pushed them out, facing Lu Qing's hammer attack. The surrounding light dimmed in a frightening manner. Poof! A muffled sound like a dud was heard. Peng Liyun's palm that was holding Lu Qing's fist glowed with a layer of ice. The freezing spread rapidly, sealing him in ice in an instant, as though he had been placed in a transparent coffin. Lu Qing felt his mental and physical strength leaking out rapidly into the depths of Peng Liyun's palm, as though he had encountered the star-sucking great skill. It was the same unique skill that he had created himself, reverse vortex. Thump, thump, thump. Lu Qing withdrew his hand abruptly and took 3 steps back. His legs were weak and he looked exhausted. A lose-lose situation, said the guest commentator He Xiaowei in amusement. Before he could finish his sentence, he saw Lu Qing energize and regain his vigor. Then, with a sliding step, he closed in on his opponent who had yet to break free from the ice seal. The second strike of the simplified wholeness formula. Did he take his medicine? He Xiaowei was shocked. How many lives does this guy have? Up, down, left, right, back and back? And he's still a hero? It was just a simplified version, so the effect wasn't as good. Lu Qing wasn't at his peak, but his punches and kicks weren't slow at all. he swung his left arm, straightened it into a spear and aimed it at Peng Liyun's throat. Peng Liyun was frozen, so his body's reaction was slow. He shouldn't be able to parry in time. At that moment, an electric light flashed and landed on Peng Liyun's elbow. The shock caused his forearm to swing out violently, blocking Lu Cheng's fist with a bang. Following that, Peng Liyun kept shooting out silvery white electric current to stimulate the corresponding parts of his body. This allowed his sluggish and stiffened muscles to move correctly, blocking Lu Cheng's attacks one after another. How can this work? Lu Cheng was stunned. He was almost counterattacked by his opponent. How can this work? He Xiaowei blurted out, dumbfounded. Is this the knee-jerk reaction? Or is he using electric current to simulate neuron signals to forcibly move his frozen body? Is he still F*King human? He's already an inhuman. No. I can't let Peng Liyun break free from his stiffness. I have to end this quickly. Lu Cheng couldn't be bothered to be stingy with his mental strength. He kept drawing back his qi and blood and blasting out his Dan force. One punch was covered in frost to replenish the effects of the cold, while the other was surrounded by red, detonating externally to create vibrations. Peng Liyun forced himself to perform force concentration. The feeling of being frozen and stiffened lessened each time. Although his internal injuries were worsening, he didn't show any signs of losing. Lu Cheng stepped forward, stirring up strong winds. Seizing the opportunity when his opponent's movements were affected, he switched to 8 different positions and struck 8 ice spirit force. Peng Liyun was on the verge of collapsing. At that moment, Lu Cheng used snow cover followed by cold devour. Nimble as a fox, he flashed behind Peng Liyun. Taking advantage of Peng Liyun's missed attack, he was going to win. At the critical moment, the turbine in Peng Liyun's body spun again, releasing a strong repulsive force. Lu Cheng's heart was as cold as ice. Unmoved, he channeled his qi and blood to stimulate his body and used the simplified fighting formula again. Bam! He retracted his arm and swung it out with his bulging muscles, breaking through the air barrier and breaking through the force field. Then he swung his arms and struck continuously with Zen, not giving his opponent a chance to catch his breath. Bam bam bam. Peng Liyun's qi and blood churned and his muscles twitched. Affected by the electric current, his limbs became sluggish. Exhausted, Lu Cheng paused for a moment and used the simplified wholeness formula one last time. Invigorated, he took a step forward and struck with a Zen punch with his left fist. Peng Liyun was wobbling, his internal organs on the verge of rupturing. Bam! Lu Cheng didn't hold back. He continued visualizing and raised his right arm. Severe warning. Peng Liyun's body was so sluggish that it was difficult for him to dodge. He could only use the electric current to stimulate him and raise his arm to receive the blow. Bam! Peng Liyun's body trembled and he stood rooted to the spot. Although his mind was under the Thunder God's suppression and his thoughts weren't completely frozen, he couldn't send out signals in time to control his body. Lu Cheng swung his left arm and opened his palm, pressing it against his opponent's head. The referee raised his right hand and ended the long and arduous battle. First round, Lu Cheng wins. Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief. Until the very end, he felt that Priest would be able to turn the tables. Once his momentum dropped, his spirit withered. In terms of other aspects, he was still slightly inferior to Peng Liyun. Moreover, the simplified wholeness formula's effect was getting worse with each strike. If his opponent could withstand 3 more strikes, he would probably be the one to lose. Of course, Priest's energy consumption wouldn't be much lower than his. Even if he could break free from the effects of paralysis, he might not be able to seize the opportunity to win. Victory was only a hair's breadth away. Peng Liyun recovered, stared at Lu Cheng and blurted out, "Encountering gods in the void?" "Yeah." Lu Cheng nodded calmly. "Impressive." Peng Liyun praised. With great difficulty he turned and left. He shook his head and smiled as he walked. He didn't feel dejected, only the urge to try again. The surrounding audience came to their senses and applauded enthusiastically. Chapter 535. Looking at Peng Liyun staggering back and feeling his own muscles trembling uncontrollably under the influence of the residual electric current, Lu Cheng, who was standing in the middle of the arena, suddenly felt a little emotional. "I finally defeated the great demon king fair and square. It wasn't easy at all. From today onwards, he and I will truly stand on the same level. We will look at each other on equal footing. It has been 2.5 years since Master brought me to Shanbei to meet Peng Liyun in the morning to receive his education and set my goal. Over hundreds of days and nights, step by step, I finally reached this point. Of course, It didn't mean that he would be able to suppress Daoist priest from now on. He could sense that even with the use of secret techniques, the difference between the two of them was only a hair's breadth. If he hadn't misjudged the situation and carelessly clashed with the lament of the Ice Queen, the outcome might have been completely different. And at the current stage of the advancement of the inhuman level, every step forward would be extremely difficult. Even if he were to master the fire sex techniques and Daoist priest's mastery of other supreme arts, he would only be able to enrich his means and surprise his opponent once or twice. He wouldn't be able to bring about any substantial improvement. For a long period of time, the two of them would be evenly matched. Lu Qing took one last look at Peng Liyun before slowly retracting his gaze. He thought to himself, next, our competition will be to see who can reach the Dragon Gate faster and who can achieve physical invulnerability first. On the spectator stand, and Chaoyang, who had specially bought a ticket, uncrossed his hands and leaned back. He sighed and muttered to himself, "Hey, priest didn't go all out but lost the match." It wasn't that Peng Liyun had never failed in the past. However, he would either lose to the mighty ones or lose because he wanted to see his opponent's secret technique. It was rare for him to go all out and still lose to his opponent. This was even more so when it came to a battle of the same level. In the changing room of Capital Academy, Renli watched the entire live broadcast. She wasn't worried that it would affect the second semi-final match that was about to begin. At this time, her doll-like beautiful face had a bit more disappointment and also a bit more relief. He was disappointed because Lu Qing had finally caught up with him. His worries had become a reality. He was relieved because it was proven that Taoist priests could also fail. There were also times when they were powerless. They weren't invincible demons. The little shadow in his heart was swept away. "I can defeat you too." She rubbed the sheathed longsword on her lap. It was warm to the touch and the brass was as good as new. Lu Qing, Lu Qing. Peng Liyun, Peng Liyun. Amidst the cheers and cheers of the audience, Lu Chang, the host in the live broadcast room, sighed. "What a wonderful match. Lu Qing is so strong. The era of the big devil is over." Indeed. Even though the gap between their performances isn't big, and Peng Liyun might be able to win the next match, the invincible Demon King has indeed passed away. The guest commentator He Xiaowei sighed and agreed. From now on, the elites won't be lonely anymore. Experts aren't lonely. Well said. They don't have to worry about not having an opponent of the same level. They can train and improve each other. They can be like friends and enemies, surpassing the past. Lu Chang praised. He then added, "The enemy I'm talking about is a competitor. Fans nowadays are very scary. They would accuse you of anything you don't agree with. You have to be very careful with your words." Yes, such a battle is rare in the inhuman professional competition. Everyone can always reminisce about it. When the time comes, Lu Chang and I will come up with a detailed commentary version. It won't be like just now where you can't catch up with the rhythm after a slight pause. Haha, if everyone wants to watch the replay now, our White Jade Hall video supports online replays and slow acting. He Xiaowei helped his partner to advertise. Lu Chang nodded his head slightly in satisfaction. He then sighed. It's a pity that Lu Qing is going to enter the professional competition as an intern in his 4th year. Otherwise, he would be an unshakable super demon king in the next university martial arts competition. What's the point of bullying a primary school student? Without Peng Liyun, Renli, and opponents of similar strength, what's the point of bullying noobs? It's a waste of time, a waste of life. He Xiaowei said with a smile. Lu Chang thought for a while and answered seriously, "Personally, I have to admit that bullying noobs is really interesting." As he spoke, he laughed. He Xiaowei couldn't help but laugh as well. Alright, the second round is about to begin. Let's see how much strength Lu Qing has left and whether he can still create a miracle. After a few seconds, Lu Chang's face turned serious. I don't think Lu Qing can do anything after defeating Peng Liyun. He Xiaowei was never stingy with his views. Shut up. Every single one of Shanbei's supporters and Peng Liyun's fans shouted the same word in their hearts. Early in the morning in America, the sky was slightly bright. Yan Zhika was leaning against a pillow with a computer in front of her, a tablet in her left hand and a phone in her right hand. She continued to watch the live broadcast and replayed the previous battle over and over again. She kept scrolling through the forums and Weibo with praises. When the referee announced the result, Yan Shaoling jumped up from the seats of the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. She waved her arms excitedly and mumbled incomprehensible words. If EZ hadn't held her back, she really didn't know what she would have done. Another diehard Lu Qing fan, Deng Yang, also waved his fists wildly and bumped fists with Kai Zhongming, Wang Dali, and the others over and over again. The others were a little speechless. Damn retard. Little Ming cursed under his breath as he looked left and right with the corner of his mouth raised. Ching is really King awesome. Immersed in joy, they forgot that the match was not over yet. They only calmed down when the freckled and handsome Fang Zhirong stepped onto the stone steps. Half expectantly and half indifferently, they waited for the referee to wave his arm. In the arena, looking at the slightly gloomy and arrogant enemy opposite him, Lu Qing didn't take a break. He concentrated his qi and blood, afraid that he would waste what little energy he had left. Although this would cause his body to be continuously numbed and stimulated by the electric current, when the battle officially started, he could neutralize and attack during the match. Looking at Lu Cheng's slightly twitching body, Fang Zhirong didn't dare to be negligent. He got into a stance and concentrated. Lu Cheng was indeed close to his limit and was severely affected by the electric shock. However, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. A struggling beast is equally ferocious. The referee didn't wait. He raised his right hand and swiftly swung it down. Begin. Fang Zhirong bent his back and darted to the side in a strange posture. He was like a slithering venomous snake, like a wild wolf sneaking up on its prey. His body seemed to darken as though he was leaving a black shadow behind him. He wanted to circle around his enemy and wait for a chance to deliver a fatal blow. Lu Qing took a deep breath and endured the numbness and soreness in his muscles. Using his powerful control of self-reflection as the pivot, he pounced forward with a bang. He instantly went from a standstill to high speed. When he turned, he brushed against the void, breaking through the air barrier and stirring up strong winds. He wanted to take the initiative to pursue his enemy. Bam, bam, bam. The strong winds continued and lightning intertwined. Lu Qing kept changing directions as though a deity was casting a spell. He closed the distance between him and Fang Zhirong amidst his shouts. However, his opponent's movements were strange and slippery. It was hard to lock onto him in a hurry. At this moment, Lu Qing focused and outlined the ancient character. His qi and blood followed suit and stimulated a certain part of his body. His eyes suddenly turned sharp and cold. A murderous aura shot out and enveloped his enemy. Fang Zhirong's mind wavered. It was as though he had come to a blood-soaked battlefield and was facing a general on horseback with a butcher's knife. He was trembling from the inside out and his body froze. It was this pause that allowed Lu Qing to close in. He gathered his qi and blood and dispelled part of the numbness. Wearing a glittering and frosty glove on his left fist, he swung it sideways. The effect of the simplified army formula wasn't strong. Fang Zhirong woke up after a short pause. Seeing that he couldn't avoid the ice spirit heavy punch, he could only explode his Dan force, swell his arms and punch forward to block. Bam! Fang Zhirong's body swayed. In terms of strength he was on par with Lu Qing. However, his qi and blood were frozen, causing his muscles to stiffen and his movements to slow down. Bam! Lu Qing did another force concentration. His other fist, surrounded by crimson flames, shot out like a cannonball. Bam bam bam. He did a series of bursts, alternating between using ice spirit to slow down his opponent and Emperor Yen to hurt him. His movements were smooth, each move heavy and precise. Bam bam bam. Fang Zhirong struggled to hold on and barely managed to defend himself. He wanted to use a killing move to get out of the predicament or dodge and regroup, but he could not find a single chance. His opponent's control of the rhythm and the connection between the moves were as if it had been measured with a ruler. There was no flaw. The ultimate technique that he had worked hard to learn over the past year was completely useless. In the midst of the intense attacks, Lu Qing suddenly slowed down. Using his advantage, he visualized the heavy and scorching Emperor Yen and the god of fire, Zhurong, who was riding a crimson dragon. Thump. He stepped forward, pulled back his right arm, drew his bow, and shot a heavy punch. Fire Sect's simplified physical invulnerability move, internal explosion punch. In the previous battle, Lu Qing had used too much of his ice force, which had drained it. He couldn't use severe warning anymore. Even if he tried, the effect on Fang Zhirong would be limited, and he wouldn't be able to leave any injuries. It was a waste. At this moment, Fang Zhirong was at a loss for what to do with his opponent's change in rhythm. He could only use force concentration and spurt out Dan Qi. He raised his palm and blocked Lu Cheng's fist. Boom. It was as if a bomb had exploded in his body. His qi and blood were tumbling madly, and his internal organs were about to shift. Lu Qing withdrew his qi and blood and threw out another ice spirit heavy punch, which was shrouded in cold air. It hit Fang Zhirong's arm, which was barely holding up, and made him stagger backward. Fang Zhirong's muscles stiffened, and he hurriedly held his Dan and struggled to defend himself. Another visualization and another internal explosion. Expressionless, Lu Qing took a step forward, raised his right fist, and smashed it down heavily on his opponent's raised arms. Boom. Fang Zhirong's eyes, nostrils, ears, and mouth were all red. His qi and blood were tumbling so much that it was difficult for him to circulate them. His internal organs were severely injured. Lu Qing withdrew his force and tried to throw another ice spirit punch. However, his head was suddenly dizzy. His spirit had reached its limit. Before he could use force concentration, his condensed qi and blood dispersed. Fang Zhirong was stunned at first. Then he seized the opportunity to suppress his injuries. He stretched his back and swung backward, covering more than 10 meters in one leap. That wasn't the end. He made a forceful turn and dodged to the side. Lu Qing felt it was a pity. He tried to catch up with him and try again with a normal attack. However, as soon as he took a step, he felt the world spinning around him. He almost fell and could only stand there helplessly. When he made his move, Fang Zhirong was like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. He swung his center of gravity and hurriedly retreated, as if he was scared out of his wits. Lu Qing couldn't help but break into a smile. Once he started laughing, he couldn't stop. It was because of Fang Zhirong's overreaction and the satisfaction of defeating Peng Liyun. Haha. Lu Qing shook his head. He didn't care about Fang Zhirong or the referee anymore. He turned around, walked up the stone steps with a smile, and left the arena in a carefree manner. P.S. Looking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Chapter 536. Second round, Fang Zhirong wins. Hearing the referee's announcement and looking at Lu Qing's back, Fang Zhirong froze on the spot. Immediately, his blood rushed to his head. Embarrassed and angry, he clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles cracked. His injuries are not light. Those 2 blows should be internal explosion punch. In the live broadcast studio, the host, Lu Chang, said, half surprised and half seeking confirmation. However, he didn't hear the answer he expected, be it a yes or no. His surroundings were eerily quiet. What's going on? Lu Chang turned to look at his partner, only to see He Xiaowei in a daze. His lips were trembling, and his face was alternating between red and green. TSK, what does Fang Zhirong's injuries have to do with you? Why do you look like you've lost your entire family fortune? Lu Chang was confused and full of doubts. At this moment, a thought flashed through his mind. He remembered something from before and instantly understood the whole story. He Xiaowei had sworn that if Daidu won the championship, he would shave all the hair on his head. After taking 2 internal explosion punches from a weak inhuman, Fang Zhirong's injuries weren't something that could be healed in 3 to 5 days. When he fought in Daidu, he would be considered strong if he could still exert 50% of his strength. Looks like the casual poison healer has to be replaced by the carefully prepared kind. Lu Chang looked at He Xiaowei's head from head to toe. His lips were tightly pursed, and his cheeks and neck were trembling as he tried to hold back his laughter. Looks like I can probably look forward to it. What kind of scene will it be? I can't hold it in, ha. Returning to the seats, Lu Qing saw that everyone was still in a daze. What's wrong? Although he didn't expect to win this match, he shouldn't have waited so long. Kai Zhongming's mouth twitched. Have you ever considered us? What's the situation? Lu Qing was confused. If you say you lost, then you lost. Why are you laughing? Little Ming pointed at Fang Zhirong in the arena. Look at him. He's obviously holding back his anger. He'll definitely vent it on little Yangzi and me and torture us. Even if that guy is seriously injured and weakened in all aspects, he's still not someone a top 9th pin fighter can challenge. Lu Qing came to a realization. He solemnly extended his hand and patted Talker's shoulder. Don't worry, there's a referee. Kai Zhongming was so angry that he laughed. You might as well not have said anything. It made one's calves tremble even more. At this moment, Deng Yang put on an expression as if he was not afraid of death. He bumped fists with Lu Qing and the others one by one and walked towards the ring with his head held high. After watching him walk a few steps forward, Lu Qing took back his phone and shared his joy with Yan Zhika. Walking up the stone steps, Deng Yang stood in front of Fang Zhirong, who had just performed a force concentration to reduce the effects of his internal injuries. He saw his enemy's gloomy face and furious black eyes. He couldn't help but shudder. It was as if a venomous snake was staring at his throat and a sniper rifle was aiming at his temple. Was this the aura suppression of a professional sixth pin in the dance stage? Deng Yang tried his best to soothe his qi and blood, causing his skin to glow with a faint jade glow. Shizhou Island, quenching Jade tactics. The referee did not give Fang Zhirong any more chances to calm down. He raised his right hand and swung it down. Begin. Fang Zhirong did not wipe the blood from his mouth and nose. He bent his back and slithered forward, strangely but quickly closing in on Deng Yang. Deng Yang was at a disadvantage in terms of body movement. He dodged a few times but still couldn't get rid of him. The distance between them was getting closer and closer. At this moment, Fang Zhirong withdrew his qi and blood and held it in his lower abdomen. Then it exploded and rushed out, expanding his legs. Crack. A spider web appeared under his feet. He pounced and closed in on Deng Yang, punching with his right fist. Deng Yang took a deep breath and expanded his temples. He raised his arms and made the most conservative parry. Suddenly, two muscles on Fang Zhirong's back bulged like butterflies. He pulled his spine to the side and changed his direction. He dodged to the side of his opponent in one step. Bam! He stretched out his left palm and opened his 5 fingers. They were shining with a dark light, like terrifying poisonous fangs. Deng Yang was used to this move and had lost his balance. Seeing that it was impossible to dodge, his face turned pale. He clenched his teeth, bulged his biceps, tightened his sleeves and took the initiative to swing diagonally. Rip! His sleeves split open, revealing his jade-like skin held by Fang Zhirong's 5 fingers. Deng Yang's expression turned ferocious before he felt weak and out of breath. A jade-like glow appeared on his face. He exerted strength in his legs, lowered his shoulders and leaned fiercely to the side. Bam! Fang Zhirong's qi and blood were still rolling. His body's reaction was delayed. He only had time to raise his right arm and block in front of his body. Deng Yang, who was counterattacking, hit him head-on. Fang Zhirong's arm trembled as he firmly resisted the blow. Fang Zhirong's qi and blood stagnated, and his internal injuries almost exploded. In the live broadcast room, He Xiaowei swayed as if the Iron Mountain Lean had actually hit him. Deng Yang's dark poison force was activated. His strength disappeared and he had difficulty breathing. He could only lower his head and gasp for air. The difference in their realms was too great, so the effect was naturally amazing. Fang Zhirong's face turned red, then green. He blocked with his right arm and his left fist was about to hit his opponent's lower abdomen. At this moment, a hand reached out and blocked his attack. The referee raised his other hand and exhaled. Round 3, Fang Zhirong wins. Phew. Fang Zhirong exhaled. He retracted his fist and stood up straight, unable to vent his anger. Deng Yang gasped for breath and finally recovered. After cupping his hands and bowing, he walked out of the arena with light footsteps. He had only taken a few steps when Wang Dali and the others came up to support him. Go to the emergency room and get some oxygen? Lu Qing suggested. Yeah. Deng Yang nodded slightly. He panted and smiled bitterly. I tried my best. Well done. Lu Qing praised from the bottom of his heart and extended his fist. Deng Yang raised his hand weakly and bumped it with Lu Cheng's. The ceremony was completed and he was sent to the emergency room. Kai Zongming, who was beside him, gasped and looked at Lu Cheng. Can I forfeit? What do you think? Lu Qing looked at him amused. I think you can. Kai Zongming didn't want to lose with words. He gritted his teeth and said with a twisted expression, Do you think I'm scared? What's there to be scared of? There's a referee anyway. He took a valiant and spirited stride forward, approaching the stone steps with an imposing manner. Just as he was about to ascend the arena, he calmed down his expression, hiding a smile, and was calm and composed. Yes, I'm in the live broadcast area. I can't show my unhandsome side. Kai Zongming trembled when he came to the center of the arena and was stared at by Fang Zhirong. He hurriedly calmed his mind and comforted himself by muttering to himself, Just a dead man, just a dead man? Fang Zhirong vaguely heard what he said. The veins on his forehead bulged and he almost couldn't stabilize his injury. The referee was almost amused. He shook his head and raised his hand. Begin. Crack. Fang Zhirong made a forced concentration right at the start of the match. He pushed off the arena with both feet and lunged at Kai Zongming at lightning speed. His vision blurred and his enemy was already close. Kai Zongming tensed up and followed his plan. He braced his feet and raised his arms to block. His 2 hands grabbed each other's cuffs in a weird posture. Bam! Fang Zhirong opened his 5 fingers and was about to grab his enemy's forearm. At this moment, 2 tearing sounds were heard. Kai Zongming tore off his sleeves and used the fabric of his clothes as a flag. He expanded his airflow and wrapped it around Fang Zhirong's palm. He countered with softness. Then he flicked his elbow and threw his forearm at his opponent's face. He was ready to launch a second attack with his knuckles. Fang Zhirong's face darkened. He pulled his shoulder and lifted his other arm, staining the edge of his palm with a touch of green. Bam! He flipped his palm and hit his enemy's bare arm. In an instant, Kai Zongming felt the pain of thousands of arrows piercing his heart, knives scraping his bones and needles stabbing his fingers. He instinctively hugged his arm and screamed. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. His face was pale and he looked like he was about to faint. The 27th move of the Plague Sect, Scorpion Tail Needle. This was a unique skill that magnified pain. Fang Zhirong took the opportunity to raise his waist and knee forward. The referee raised his leg in time and blocked the attack. He raised his right hand and announced, Round 4, Fang Zhirong wins. Final result, Shanbei University Martial Arts Club wins. Fang Zhirong took a deep breath and calmed down a little. He raised his hands and applauded to the audience who had supported him. Kai Zongming was in a daze. He walked down the arena in a daze. Every step he took seemed to be extremely painful and drained of all his strength. When Lu Cheng and Wang Dali supported him, he recovered and felt the pain begin to subside. He spoke for the first time, F***CK. At F***King hurts. I'm relieved that you're alive and kicking. Lu Cheng chuckled and asked casually, How did you feel just now? Feel? I'm F***King doubting my life. Little Ming replied with a rich expression. The first round of the semi-finals was over. Songqing University was eliminated. Shanbei University advanced to the finals for the fourth time in 4 years. Lu Cheng and the others were mentally prepared for failure. They weren't too sad, but they felt a little disappointed and had mixed feelings. After watching Ren Li show her invincible power and lead the Capital College Martial Arts Club to the finals, Songqing University's group took the bus back to the hotel. As soon as they entered the lobby, Lu Cheng saw a middle-aged man in a suit walking towards them with a smile on his face. He wore gold-rimmed glasses and had an elegant temperament. He introduced himself, I'm the representative of the Longhu Club. Chapter 537. I'm the representative of Longhu Club. Hearing this, Kai Zongming and the rest looked at each other excitedly. They patted Lu Cheng on the shoulder and walked past him to the elevator. Hello. Lu Cheng locked his phone and nodded with a smile. Hello, my surname is Zhang. Today, I'm mainly here to discuss the general conditions and our arrangements for the future. If you feel that there are no problems, we will draft a contract and send it to you in a few days. Mr. Zhang pointed to the cafe next to the lobby. Let's sit and talk. Sure. Lu Cheng didn't refuse. After ordering a drink, Mr. Zhang crossed his fingers and placed them in front of his chest. He smiled and said, Judging from your reaction, you really won't be returning to Wuxia Club. I'm relieved. Longhu Club's initial plan is to offer you a 5-year contract with a yearly salary of 10 million. 10 million? Lu Cheng was surprised. According to the information published online, a veteran 4th Pin Mighty One's annual salary was only 6 to 7 million. The difference wasn't big for foreign grandmasters of martial arts of the same level. Money in China was still very valuable. Mr. Zhang chuckled and said, Dragon King suggested that you be treated as a quasi-physical invulnerability expert. This is only your salary and doesn't include bonuses or benefits. If you don't mind, I'll talk about the subsequent terms. I'm very satisfied, Lu Cheng replied with a smile. He didn't bargain. This was much better than what he had expected. Moreover, Dragon King had fought hard for it. If he asked for more, he would be too greedy. Mr. Zhang took a sip of his black coffee. He pushed his glasses and said, The main source of bonuses is from winning. For every match you win, depending on the importance of the match, you'll get a bonus of 100,000 to 200,000. In addition, you'll get a share of the club's final ranking. He picked the important points and said, The benefits will be based on the income from the club's related industries. If you're not a physical invulnerability expert, it won't be much. After you make the big leap, your annual salary and bonuses will be just pocket money. Of course, if you want to get more, you'll have to work for the club. This isn't mandatory. I have no problem with the general terms. When the time comes, I'll get a lawyer to take a look. Lu Cheng nodded in agreement. That's what you should do. Mr. Zhang smiled and talked about other agreements. When he reached a preliminary agreement with Lu Cheng, he moved on to the next arrangement. Is it okay to report before July? No. Lu Cheng shook his head. With your current realm and strength, it would be very difficult for you to participate in the top professional competitions. It's also quite risky. We'll give you some time to digest the Dan stage unique skill of the fire sect. We'll register you for the preliminaries of the Battle of the Kings in mid-August. After that, we'll make similar arrangements. We'll strive to let you have a high-level battle every week. Next year, in February or March, if you agree, I will let you experience it for yourself in a second or third-tier professional team that you have a good relationship with. If there is a serious injury, the club will take care of the first 3 months. After that, the insurance company will take care of the rest. You can rest assured. In short, the goal is for you to make the great leap and achieve physical invulnerability within 3 years. By the way, I forgot to mention that we have the priority to renew the contract. We can also buy out the contract. Mr. Zhang emphasized his words with his hand gestures to show his confidence in Lu Cheng. The 4-tier professional competitions in China started at the end of February or the beginning of March and ended at the end of December or the beginning of January every year. The central government would have 2 long breaks, as well as a gap to make way for the 5 major title competitions. Among the 5 major title competitions, the Battle of the Kings would be held from mid-August to early September every year. In the first 2 weeks of December, there would be an elimination battle to determine the challenger of the previous king. In March or April of the following year, the winner of 2 out of 3 rounds would be the new king. The title competitions of the Warrior Sage, Supreme Class, Master and Kirin had similar arrangements. They would take advantage of the gaps in the professional competitions. The only difference was that each competition format was slightly different. For example, the top 3 of the Supreme Class would be eliminated in an elimination battle. They would form a 4-man round-robin with the previous champion. They would face off against each other once, and the one with the best record would win the title. If there was a tie, there would be a tiebreaker. After Lu Cheng asked for a few details and expressed his opinion, the preliminary discussion ended happily. Mr. Zhang drank the last mouthful of black coffee and extended his hand with a smile. Then I'll go back and draft the contract. Congratulations on joining the Longhu Club. We're on the same side from now on. Lu Cheng extended his hand and shook the other party's hand. Goodbye. Rest early. Mr. Zhang waved his hand and left with a face full of joy. Watching his back disappear at the entrance of the cafe, Lu Cheng sat down again. Looking at the dimly lit environment, listening to the gentle and melodious music, he drank a mouthful of slightly sour lemon water to quench his thirst. He suddenly realized that a journey in his life had come to an end, and a new adventure was about to begin. He had always known that he would leave school after the national championship and enter society after his 3rd-year exams. However, knowing clearly and feeling clearly were 2 completely different concepts. Now that things had come to a head, the footsteps of the future were stepping on his heart 1 step at a time. It was anticipation, hope, sadness, and melancholy. I'm leaving the martial arts club and the relatively simple school. What will the adult world, the world of professional martial arts, be like? After July, I won't be able to travel to and from America as frequently as I did this year, let alone stay for 10 days to half a month. I might only be able to go once every 2 or 3 months, and I can only stay for 3 to 5 days each time. Brother-in-law was right when he said that the frivolous days of youth would end as soon as he matured. The melody of the music entered his ears. Wearing a black t-shirt, Lu Cheng sat there with a cup in his hand. He didn't move for a long time, as if he had become a shadow in the dim light. 2 days later, he watched the final match between Shanbei and Capital. Ren Li used the Kong Tong swordsmanship, which was based on the unique skills of the Wind Sect, supplemented by hidden scent, and narrowly defeated Peng Liyun, who had gone through a fierce battle and was not in his best condition. Fang Zhirong, who had not recovered from his internal injuries and was ravaged by Ren Li, finally lost to Jiang Kongchan. Of course, Lu Cheng didn't let Jiang Kongchan off easily. The influence of the dark poison force had greatly reduced Jiang Kongchan's strength, so he couldn't win by himself. In the end, Jiang Jingfeng, who didn't show his strength, defeated Bernhard, drawing a perfect end to the hard work of the Capital Academy in the past few years. After this year, Peng Liyun, Ren Li, Jiang Jingfeng, Xing Jingjing, and Piao Yuan all graduated. Lu Cheng, Li Xiaoyuan, and Fang Zhirong entered professional competitions in advance. The University Martial Arts Circle fell back to the level it was 2 years ago. It was foreseeable that there would be no such glorious and brilliant situation in the future. He Xiaowei, who was bald, commented, "The golden age of the University Martial Arts Circle has come to an end. P.S. I think it's better to put the following content in a chapter, so this chapter has fewer words." Well, this is the last chapter of the 3rd book. Chapter 538. At the end of June, there were fewer and fewer students in the campus of Songqing University. In the season of summer, when the fruits on the branches were full, there was a sense of desolation in the air. Dormitory 302 Unit 2 Building 7. Lu Qing opened the closet and looked at some t-shirts, pants and shirts in a mess. He was a little confused. These were the leftovers from Ko Qian's long-distance selection. At his feet, the 28-inch suitcase was full. The cardboard boxes were sealed with tape and pasted with express deliveries, waiting to be sent out. If you don't want your old clothes, you can take them to Building 12. A few seniors seemed to be organizing a donation drive. Zhao Chang tidied up his luggage and glanced at Lu Qing. Not bad. I'll go there tomorrow. Lu Qing closed the closet door and turned around. He looked at Chang, who had been the head of the dormitory for 3 years. When are you coming back? Tomorrow afternoon. I'll go to Songqing Normal University first. Zhao Chang pushed his black-rimmed glasses shyly and asked, What about you? My flight is at noon the day after tomorrow. Lu Qing smiled and looked around. He invited, Let's get together tonight? Sure. Zhao Chang agreed readily. Qiu Zhigao, who was showing off his muscles, stopped and laughed. I was waiting for you to say that. Zhang Jingye, the model worker, looked away from the lines of code on the computer screen and picked up his phone. Okay, I'll tell Wu Qian first. Then I'll ask next door. Lu Qing walked out of the small dormitory and stood in front of Talker's door. He bent his fingers and knocked twice on the open wooden door. Let's have dinner together tonight? Lu Qing smiled when he got the look back. Kai Zongming clicked his tongue. I thought you forgot about the farewell dinner. I was wondering if I should remind you that the Supreme Seafood Barbecue restaurant in the gourmet city is very good. Qi Nemo put on his gold-rimmed glasses and put his palms together. I didn't go home today. I didn't go out to fool around. I was waiting for you to treat me. Don't worry, I won't rush to pay the bill. No problem. Mao Yuanxing, who had brought his girlfriend since he entered the university and slept in the dormitory all year round, was lying on the bed. He raised his phone to show that he had gotten the approval from the leader. He was not tall, but he was very bookish. God Tangwen also raised his head. When are we leaving? Hey, you're not playing games in the dorm anymore? Lu Qing blurted out, amused. This guy always asked little Ming to bring food for him. I mainly play mobile games now. Isn't it the same wherever I go? Tang Wen answered matter-of-factly. That makes a lot of sense. I'm actually speechless. Lu Qing could only take out his phone and look at the lit screen. Let's wait for another half an hour before leaving. According to Talker's suggestion, let's go to the Supreme Seafood Barbecue restaurant in the gourmet city. Compared to 3 years ago when they had just arrived, the new campus of Songqing University was no longer so desolate. There was a residential area, a gourmet city, and a few bustling streets. Half an hour later, after walking for more than 20 minutes, everyone from Dorm 302 arrived at the food city. They found the barbecue shop that Kai Zongming had mentioned and ordered a lot of things, including a few cartons of beer. We'll drink. You and Talker can drink as you please. Qi Nemo brushed his hair back and changed from a gentle to a forthright manner. I'll be the wine commander. You look like you're used to hanging out in nightclubs. Kai Zongming didn't hold back. He took a bottle of Dongrui beer and said, I'll break my rule today. I can't waste Cheng's treat. Just tell me if you want a drink. You don't have to use me as an excuse. Lu Qing poured himself a cup of buckwheat tea, stood up, looked around and said with some emotion, I won't say anything about being on the same boat for 100 years. Anyway, it's a rare fate for all of us to be in the same dorm and spend time together for 3 years. I'll probably come back once or twice in my senior year for my dissertation and graduation. Let me use this tea as a substitute for wine to toast to all of you, to the past 3 years, and to the tale of youth that has passed away. You're getting better at talking, aren't you? Kai Zongming stood up with a cup full of beer and teased him. Isn't that obvious? I've been thinking about this for days. I've even revised the draft several times. Lu Qing said self-deprecatingly as he clinked glasses with Zhao Chang and the others. To our university life. He shouted in a low voice with mixed feelings. He raised the cup and gulped down the tea. Kai Zongming didn't interrupt and finished the beer in his cup with Qi Nemo and the others. After sitting down again, Lu Qing peeled off the shell and ate a palm-sized grilled mantis prawn. He refilled his cup and looked at Zhao Chang opposite him. Chang, your postgraduate recommendation should be confirmed, right? Not yet. I'll have to wait until next semester. Zhao Chang looked smug. But I'm one of the top few. Ching, if you come back to Songqing in the next 3 or 4 years, feel free to look for me. I should be here. He picked up the beer bottle and filled his cup. He sighed and laughed. I think I can post a post with the title, my amazing roommate. When he entered school he was neither tall nor strong and loved to sleep. In the end he became an inhuman mighty one and a heavenly son of the era. Here, let's toast to you. Humans really have to consider the course of history and fate. After finishing his cup, Lu Qing smiled and asked Zhang Jingye, model worker, the on-campus enrollment is coming in the second half of the year. You don't seem to be taking the postgraduate entrance exam. What are your plans? Plans? I plan to stay in Songqing. You know, I'm from the Northwest. We study software. We have to stay in Beijing, Huahai, Huaqing, Moshang, Gaofen and Songqing to develop. I've thought about it. It'll be tough at the beginning. It doesn't matter if I work overtime as long as I can learn something. Zhang Jingye had thought about his future and answered sincerely, Qing, remember to look for me when you come back to Songqing. At this moment, Qin Mo laughed involuntarily. Model worker, I suddenly thought of a joke. In our line of work, the third-rate people write the code, the second-rate people do the architecture, and the first-rate people, the first-rate people do the PowerPoint. Everyone burst into laughter. When they calmed down, Kai Zongming went straight to the point and asked, model worker, be honest. Is Wu Qian a local of Songqing? No, but she wants to stay in Songqing. Zhang Jingye answered, a little embarrassed. That's even more worth a toast. Lu Qing laughed and picked up his cup. They all love their wives. Watching them gulp down their beer, Qiu Zhigao took the initiative to say, I don't want to take the postgraduate entrance exam either. I plan to leave as soon as I get a good job, even a big city is fine. After saying a few words he looked at Lu Qing and sighed. I'm a little regretful. If I had joined the special training with you in the first year, maybe everything would be different. Now he was neither high nor low, we're still young. As long as we have the heart and are willing to work hard, things will get better sooner or later. Lu Qing raised his cup and comforted him. Old Qiu didn't say more and finished the beer in his cup. In the first few years of college, some people were high-spirited while others were depressed. Lu Qing turned to look at Tang Wen. He didn't want to expose other people's scars. He smiled and said, God, the esports game industry is so popular now. When you make a lot of money in the future, don't forget us. Tang Wen raised his cup and said shyly, let's talk about it after I pass the final exam and get enough credits. Otherwise you won't see me again. My dad will beat me to death. They clinked their cups and teased each other. Lu Qing looked at Mao Yuanxing and said, when it comes to the time spent in the dormitory, I'm the last and you're the second last. Let's stop talking and have a toast. What do you think of Qin Mo? Mao Yuanxing asked wittily. After another burst of laughter, Qin Mo stood up and said, I admit it. I agree. Come on, the three of us who don't go home at night will drink a bottle. Qing, you can do whatever you want. After drinking, Lu Qing glanced at little Ming with a smile. Talker, we don't have to be so polite, right? Yes, you don't have to be so polite. Lend me your card. Kai Zongming said with disdain. After a round of drinking, they shifted their focus to the barbecue and talked about the interesting things in the past 3 years. For example, Tang Wen forgot the time of the exam, and Lu Qing only showed up in the dormitory before going to bed and chatting for a while. Once the conversation started, the past flew into their minds. A few of them were dead drunk. It wasn't clear if they were sending Lu Qing off or commemorating the 3 years of their youth that they had lost. Qing, when you become a physical invulnerability expert, I will definitely tell the people around me that this is my roommate, this is my bro. I watched him become stronger step by step. Towards the end, old Qiu stuttered and mumbled. Then he was helped into the dormitory by Zhao Chang, whose face was flushed with blood. The other drunkards were in high spirits and wanted to play a game online. The living room was deserted. Only Lu Qing and Kai Zongming were standing there. Shall we go out for a walk and get some fresh air? Little Ming suggested. Sure. Lu Qing put his hands in his pockets and answered calmly. Kai Zongming turned and walked into the dormitory. He took out 2 small bottles of Red Star Erguo and said self-deprecatingly, Today, let me indulge in some alcohol. After leaving the dormitory, they walked through the commercial street and came to the other end of the long bridge. The two went down to the lakeside and found a quiet place. Seeing the wooden bench, Lu Qing subconsciously wanted to wipe it clean before sitting down. However, he quickly realized that he didn't bring any paper towels with him. So, he shook his head and smiled. He sat down just like that. Kai Zongming sat down beside him. He twisted open the bottle cap and took a sip. He chuckled and said, Qing, do you know what my impression of you was when I first saw you? Without waiting for Lu Qing to speak, he answered his own question. This guy was so uncouth. His hair looked like it was made when he slept without drying it. It was so unique. Not to mention his clothes and pants. What the hell? Damn, you finally told the truth. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. Kai Zhongming took another sip of erguoto and said, when you said you wanted to pursue Yanzhika, although I encouraged you and taught you skills, I didn't think highly of you at all. It was the same with practicing martial arts. I thought you were wasting your time. He looked at the rippling surface of the lake and said with a sense of emptiness, in the end you really did create a miracle. The Longhu Club. That's the Longhu Club. When you were in your first year, you always talked about how the Dragon King was your idol and wanted to watch the Longhu Club's matches. In the end you just joined them. It's like you're in a TV series? Kai Zhongming didn't turn his head. His tone became deep and somewhat erratic. Qing, you must replace us and fulfill our martial arts dreams. You must become a mighty one with physical invulnerability? What do you mean by replace you? Lu Qing asked. Kai Zhongming chuckled and his voice became deeper and deeper. I know very well that even if I can reach the Dan stage in my senior year, I can only fight in the 4th level preliminaries or prepare for the 3rd level North-South regional competition after graduation. In this lifetime, it's almost impossible for me to reach the inhuman stage, let alone physical invulnerability. After 5 years of hard work, I can get a professional 7th pin certificate in 10 years. That's the best development. Maybe I can only understand withdraw when I'm 30? He turned his head and shook his head with dark eyes. Qing, this is called living, not dreaming. He grabbed the bottle and took another sip. He squeezed out a smile and said, and I don't like the life of having to fight every week. Not at all. But you're eager to fight every time. You're unusually excited every time we have a conversation. Lu Qing wanted to refute, but he was at a loss for words. Kai Zhongming drank another sip of sorghum wine. He leaned back and leaned against the back of the chair. He looked at the starry sky and said, I went home on the 1st of May. I realized that my dad has aged by almost 10 years. He didn't ask me what job I want in my senior year, but I think I'm a man. Lu Qing was stunned at first but soon understood. An inexplicable and intense sadness welled up in him. Kai Zhongming turned his head and looked at him. He said with a cheeky smile, this might be a good thing. Didn't you always say that you can understand, withdraw, after a while? I'll go home and rest for a few years. Maybe I'll be able to master some divine skills. At this moment he saw the change in Lu Qing's expression. He said in a hoarse voice, hey, why are you so jealous? I'm not jealous. Why are you jealous? I'm not jealous. Why are you jealous? I'm not King crying. Lu Qing shouted in a hoarse voice. Kai Zhongming turned his head and looked at the lake. He announced to himself, I'm not King crying either. He took a deep breath and picked up the bottle. He looked at Lu Qing and said with sparkling eyes, Qing, you have to go on well. You have to go on well? Lu Qing choked. He picked up another bottle of sorghum wine, unscrewed the cap and clinked it with Kai Zhongming's. Then he raised his head and poured it into his mouth. That strange yet familiar feeling emerged. It was choking and pungent. A day later in the early morning, Lu Qing put away his stance and exhaled. He didn't leave the lake immediately. Instead, he walked in another direction along the path that was so familiar to him that it seemed to be carved into his bones. That was the place where he picked up the black carp. That was the starting point where he exhausted the enemy in his first real battle. That was the street lamp that witnessed his first kiss with Ku. That was the observation deck that he walked past every time he went on a date. After circling the lake, Lu Qing returned to the long bridge and walked to the martial arts arena. He used the bathroom in the locker room to wash off the sweat from the training. After changing his clothes and putting on his glasses, he cleaned up the things in the locker and locked it again. He left the key in the lock. Coming out of the locker room, Lu Qing saw that Deng Yang, He Zi, and Wang Dali were still focused on the special training and didn't notice him. He smiled and watched for a while. Then he turned around and walked into the honor room. Standing in front of the Feitian Cup, the symbol of last year's national champion, he was stunned for dozens of seconds. Retracting his gaze, Lu Qing slowly looked around, taking in every scene. Only then did he leave the martial arts arena step by step, not bothering He Zi and the others. Following the path that he had walked countless times, he used his feet to remeasure the teaching building, the long bridge, the square, and the commercial street. He entered the 7th dormitory, climbed the stairs of the 2nd unit, and returned to the dormitory. Zhao Chang had left the school yesterday. Qiu Zhigao and Zhang Jingye were nowhere to be found. His desk was messy, and his luggage and suitcase were randomly placed. Lu Qing put his laptop into his backpack and finished the final preparations. He took a picture of Yan Zhika and sent her a message. Then he put on his backpack, pulled the box and walked to the door. When he was about to go out, he suddenly looked back and swept his eyes over the wooden desk, the bed that Zhao Chang always neatly made, the back of Qiu Zhigao's chair that was slightly burnt, and Zhang Jingye's half-open wardrobe. Looking around, Lu Qing silently left the room. He closed the door and closed the room full of memories. The living room outside was empty and quiet. He took a deep look and suddenly turned around. Dragging his suitcase, he left the dormitory and went down the stairs. After a few steps, Lu Qing looked back again and saw the mottled door and the dim 302 sign. 3 years had passed and they had aged a lot. Lu Qing exhaled and didn't stop. He carried his suitcase and walked down the stairs. He walked all the way. His feet were replaced by the school bus was replaced by a taxi, and the taxi was replaced by his feet. Finally he boarded the plane and sat by the window. After chatting with Yan Zhika for a while, Lu Qing turned off his phone and felt that the flight had taken off. After a short wait and a quick sprint, the iron bird flew up and rushed into the blue sky. Lu Qing turned his head and saw the city become smaller in his eyes. He saw several landmark buildings. That was the Ocean Aquarium, that was the Songqing Martial Arts Stadium, that was the building with the delicious chiffon cake. That was the mall where he bought the ring for the first time. These gradually became smaller. The eye-catching Zhaoshan Lake and Weishui Lake were reflected in Lu Qing's eyes, making him see illusions and reality. That was the lakeside where the white-haired old man was said to be studied. That was the Songqing University Martial Arts Stadium where his brother-in-law coldly showed up. That was the dormitory where he and Tucker were sarcastic. That was the canteen shared with Ku. That was the locker room where everyone was sad and painful. That was the grandstand where they shouted, "Come again." That was the honor room where hands overlapped each other and pushed the Feitian cup into the cabinet. That was the library where he jumped off the building with a girl in his arms. That was Valentine's Day when the moonlight shone and the fireworks were in full bloom. All of these quickly became smaller and ended without a trace. The flight soared high in the sky. Lu Qing slowly retracted his gaze and leaned back in his chair. He closed his eyes and silently said the words that he had been suppressing in his heart, "Goodbye, Songqing." End of part. Chapter 539. It was the end of June in Huaqing, hot and humid. Walking in the city felt like walking in a steamer, which was extremely uncomfortable. Although Lu Qing could use ice force to dispel the heat, he couldn't change the humidity of the surrounding air. His skin felt sticky and his pores couldn't breathe properly. He couldn't wait to find a place to take a cold shower. A long-haired girl in a white shirt, light gray suit, and sandals turned around and introduced, "This place is designed with one apartment per staircase, so privacy is well protected. Also, it's not far from our Longhu Club. It's about a 20-minute drive." Her name was Amin, and she was a staff member sent by the Longhu Club to welcome Lu Qing at the airport. Her skin had a healthy luster, her facial features were gentle and pretty, and the corners of her eyes were naturally curved. Not bad. Lu Qing carried his luggage and dragged his suitcase. He looked around, nodded slightly and followed Amin into the staircase. He felt a cool breeze. Amin pressed the button for the 6th floor and looked at the famous heavenly sun of the era with a gentle smile. "The club is responsible for the utilities and other expenses. Mr. Lu, you don't have to worry about it. If you encounter any problems, you can look for the property management. If they can't solve it, give me a call." As they spoke, the elevator stopped at the 6th floor. The area outside the door wasn't small. There were sofas, round tables, bonsai and other things like a waiting room. The interior design of the house was cold and hard, with black, gray and silver as the main colors, giving it a modern industrial vibe. It was more than 200 square meters, with 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a dining room, a living room and a clean and tidy kitchen. The layout was quite spacious and didn't feel cramped at all. "I live alone. There's no need to make it so big, right?" Lu Qing laughed out loud. He had originally thought that it was just a 2-bedroom apartment of about 80 square meters. Amin smiled faintly. "Everyone is the same. You can't make it special." "Everyone?" Lu Qing's heart skipped a beat and he asked with interest. "It's the inhuman mighty ones in the club's reserve team." Amin's eyes twinkled and she replied with a friendly attitude. "But there aren't many who still live in this area. Some bought their own houses and moved out. Some are in other cities, following other teams, competing in the 2nd or 3rd level professional competitions. Some are older and have switched to management, being in charge of businesses related to the club. "Oh, Mr. Lu, do you know how to drive?" "Yes, but I don't have a license." Lu Qing didn't try to hide it. "Then there will be a driver coming to pick you up tomorrow morning at 8:15 a.m. at the southeast gate. I will ask him to contact you in advance." Amin walked to the window and pointed at the artificial garden outside. "There's a specially partitioned hidden area. You don't have to run too far for your morning exercise. The facilities here are quite complete." Lu Qing exclaimed in satisfaction. As the top martial arts force in the country, how could the club not know your needs? These are all carefully selected. Amin smiled and extended her right hand. "Let's get to know each other again. Amin, I graduated 2 years ago and am a member of the Longhu Club's assistant team. You can only have a personal assistant after you reach physical invulnerability. As for now, the assistant team is in charge of everything." Lu Qing politely reached out and shook her hand gently. "In other words, I belong to the club's reserve team?" "That's right. Excluding you, there are currently 5 powerhouses in the reserve team. 2 of them live in the Sky Capital Garden. You'll be able to see them tomorrow morning," Amin answered honestly. 5 Inhumans? This doesn't include those who have gone to other teams for actual combat training or those who are old and have no hope of reaching physical invulnerability. The number of Inhumans in the Longhu Club is terrifying. No wonder the Ice God sect, Haishi sect, and others formed the Wuxia Club to barely contend with them. Lu Qing was speechless. Amin continued to introduce other situations until she received a message on her phone. She took a look and exclaimed softly, "It's so late, the train is about to stop. So is the bus. It's all that plane's fault for being delayed for so many hours." She looked up again and tried her best to smile naturally. "Mr. Lu, it's getting late. You should get some rest. If there's anything you can ask me on WeChat or over the phone." "All right." Lu Qing couldn't wait for her to leave. Amin left behind her keys, electronic card, and other items. She waved and walked towards the door. Just as she was about to open the door, she suddenly remembered something. She turned around and asked, "Mr. Lu, will we arrange for cleaning staff to come here regularly to clean and tidy up? How many days do you want them to come here? What's the schedule?" "Once every 2 days, even when I'm not around," Lu Qing said after some consideration. "Got it." Amin changed into her sandals and said goodbye with a smile. She closed the door. After exiting the elevator, her reserved footsteps gradually quickened. In the end, she was running like the wind. Finally, she caught the last train and found her seat. Amin heaved a long sigh of relief. Her whole body relaxed. However, after she bent down and massaged her aching calves, she suddenly felt a surge of sadness. During work, there were cars and the people she interacted with were all experts with extremely high incomes. It was as though she was living in the glamorous upper class. After work, she was no longer Assistant Amin. She squeezed into the subway, ate fast food and shared a room with others. She lived in a small space with only a bed, a table and a cupboard. The Longhu Club offered a decent salary for an ordinary assistant. However, in a big city, all she could do was survive and slowly earn money. When will this kind of life end? In a spacious room, Lu Qing recorded the surroundings with his phone and made a live broadcast for his wife. "How is it? Not bad, right?" he asked with a little pride. On the other side of the screen, Yenjika, dressed in a white training suit, put down the milk. She pursed her lips and smiled. "The layout is okay. It's just that the decoration style is too cold. When you come over during winter break, we'll go look for a house. In the next 5 or 10 years, we'll most likely be living in Huaqing. The sooner we buy it, the better. We'll have our own home sooner." Lu Qing said, half tempting and half letting his imagination run wild. "Why do you have to wait for me to buy?" Yenjika blinked, her dimples showing. "This kind of thing has to be decided by the head of the household." Lu Qing answered without hesitation. This was a lesson learned from the mistakes of others. In the end, his father made the final decision on the house. His mother was generally satisfied with it. However, nothing is perfect. Every time this happened, his father would be nagged. On the other hand, the decoration basically reflected his mother's intentions. Although she regretted it later on, she couldn't find anyone to complain to. She could only say a few words occasionally. Yenjika didn't understand this roundabout way of talking. She listened with a smile and nodded, seriously. "I don't trust your aesthetic standards." "What's wrong with my aesthetic standards? My little fairy is so pretty." Lu Qing took advantage of the opportunity and started flirting with her skillfully. "You're just a fool." Yenjika couldn't help but smile and turn her head to look to the side. Then Cuckoo, are you considered a wise man who makes mistakes? Lu Qing teased her with a smile. Yenjika looked around and saw that Aunt Du had gone to the garage. She raised her chin and refused to play along. No way. My brother Qing is so awesome. I have good taste. A wise man like me won't make a mistake. Lu Qing listened with a smile. After flirting with her for a while, he changed the topic and said, I heard from the assistant that the club specially assigned a chef to make Xing province dishes for me. In the future I can eat there morning, afternoon and night. I won't have to work so hard when I come back. And don't you like to cook? Yenjika covered her mouth and snickered. What I like to do is to cook with my little fairy. Lu Qing chuckled. If I'm alone, it takes me 2 hours to cook, half an hour to wash the dishes and 10 minutes to eat. What a waste. That's true. Yenjika nodded in agreement. Before she could finish, she rolled her eyes and blurted out, You eat so much. How can 10 minutes be enough? You liar. Lu Qing was speechless for a moment. After a long time he replied, I'm just giving an example. Understand the spirit, understand the spirit. At this moment Aunt Du came in and urged the girl to change. Yenjika hurriedly drank the last mouthful of milk and ended the video call. She walked up to the second floor with light steps. She didn't have class in the morning, but she had to go to the classroom at 10 to discuss the group report. Lu Qing called his mother and reported the situation of his residence. After that he washed up and lay on the bed. I'm in Huaqing. Before he went to bed he sent a message to Fatty Jiang. This guy is studying in Huaqing University in Guangnan. I'm back in Xioshan. Jiang Fei replied with a cunning smile. Just kidding. I'm waiting for you to treat me to a good meal. When? I'm leaving the day after tomorrow. Let's talk about it tomorrow. I haven't reported yet, so I'm not sure about the club's arrangements. Lu Qing didn't promise casually. After ending the chat and saying goodnight to Yenjika, he locked the phone screen and let the master bedroom fall into darkness. There was silence everywhere. A faint light shone in from the window, bringing peace and loneliness. It wasn't that Lu Qing hadn't been to foreign lands before, but except for Xioshan and Songqing, he knew clearly that they were only temporary stays and he would leave soon. This time he would take root here, germinate here and grow here. In the next 5, 10 or 20 years he would belong to this city. He lacked a sense of belonging and the future was long. Lu Qing felt inexplicably sentimental and melancholy. His heart was filled with an unreal feeling. Is this my hometown for the rest of my life? He had a similar feeling when he first arrived in Songqing, but there was more than one person in the dormitory. The liveliness soon diluted everything. Now he was alone. Alone in a foreign land as a stranger. The next morning, Lu Qing woke up on time and went to the specially partitioned field. He found a relatively secluded place to train. At 8:10 a.m., he put on an ordinary backpack and went to the southeast gate of Sky Capital Garden. He saw the silver-gray MPV that came to pick him up. He saw Amin waiting at the door with obvious eye bags. The MPV was very spacious. 2 rows of seats were placed opposite each other, separated by a small refrigerator, a bar, and a table. A man and a woman were sitting opposite him. Their eyes swept over Lu Qing as if they were real. Let me introduce you. From now on, you will be teammates in the reserve team. Amin said with a bright smile. Chapter 540. Amin had put on light makeup and wore a one-piece dress. Her professional demeanor exuded a sense of freshness and elegance. After sitting beside Lu Qing, she pointed at the man opposite her and said, Mr. Yu Wangyuan, senior 4th pin. Sitting there, Yu Wangyuan looked like half a mountain. His loose shirt was stretched tight by his muscles. However, his naturally round face added a lot of gentleness to his tough temperament. Following which, Amin looked at the remaining woman with a smile. Ms. Lu Xiaofei, newly promoted 4th pin expert this year. Lu Xiaofei wore a loose dark t-shirt. Her facial features weren't outstanding, but her eyes were full of heroic spirit. She had a charm that was different from other women. She looked younger than Yu Wangyuan, about 24 or 25 years old. Hello. After the introduction, Lu Qing greeted them politely. Just as Amin was about to introduce Lu Qing's identity, Yu Wangyuan smiled and said, There's no need for introductions. We all know who you are. We aren't old antiques who don't know how to surf the internet. How can we not know the heavenly son of the era? As he spoke, he stood up and extended his right hand to Lu Qing. I graduated from a martial arts school and spent a few years in the military. I just joined the club not long ago. Long Hu and the military indeed have a close relationship. Lu Qing left his seat thoughtfully and shook hands with Yu Wangyuan. He felt that Yu Wangyuan's calluses were as thick as steel. Lu Xiaofei sat steadily, cupped her fist and bowed. I rose from Longhu's beginner martial arts school. You probably haven't heard of me. We will be teammates in the future. Lu Qing obviously couldn't say that he hadn't heard of her before, so he could only say this out of courtesy. He only knew of one inhuman in Longhu Club, the top fourth pin Tu Zheng. Tu Zheng could exchange more than 10 moves with a physical invulnerability mighty one. When Longhu Club was in a predicament where 2 or 3 main players were injured and couldn't fight, he would act as a firefighter. Hence, Lu Qing had seen a few of his matches. The traffic jam from Sky Capital Garden to Longhu Club in the suburbs wasn't too bad. After 23 minutes, the car arrived at its destination. Throughout the entire process, Yu Wangyuan and Lu Xiaofei were polite and distant. They only briefly talked about the situation of the reserve team. Lu Qing wasn't surprised by this. It wasn't easy to meet someone like Little Ming who was so friendly with others. Amin, on the other hand, tried her best to liven up the atmosphere and shared some unimportant gossip. The main building of the Longhu Club was only 5 stories high, but it occupied an extremely large area, almost as big as 10 martial arts stadiums combined. There were 2 horizontal plaques on both sides of the entrance, with the words Dragon Coiling on a black background and Tiger Crouching on the other. Other than that, there were no other decorations. Looking at it from afar, one could vaguely see the sparkling lake in the distance. Lu Qing had just gotten out of the car, and before he could speak to Amin, Yu Wangyuan and Lu Xiaofei, he saw a familiar figure rushing in from the door. It was Mr. Zhang, who wasn't wearing a suit and was only wearing a shirt. The Mr. Zhang who had finalized the terms of the contract with Lu Qing. I found out later that his name is Zhang Shouyin. Seeing an old friend in a foreign land put Lu Qing's mood at ease. He waved with a smile. You're finally here. Follow me in first. Empress Luo wants to see you. Zhang Shouyin pushed his gold-rimmed spectacles. He didn't have the time to exchange pleasantries with Yu Wangyuan and the rest. He gestured for Lu Qing to follow him as he turned and walked towards the door. Empress Luo, Ning Zitong? The thought flashed through Lu Qing's mind. He quickened his pace and caught up with Zhang Shouyin in the blink of an eye. They entered through the door side by side. Empress Luo Ning Zitong was 42 years old this year. In her prime she had held 2 titles. Due to her ghostly movements, she was revered as the Ghost King. She didn't like this title, so she named herself Empress Luo. After more than 10 years of perseverance, she finally got what she wanted. When people mentioned Ning Zitong, the first thing they would think of was Empress Luo. She was the successor of the Longhu Club, the one who truly laid the foundation for this place to become one of the top forces. Even though she was still participating in professional competitions, she was already the de facto leader of the club, equivalent to the sect master of the Shangqing sect or the abbot of Daxing Temple. Seeing Lu Qing's back disappear through the door, Lu Xiaofei didn't hide it from Amin. She lowered her voice and asked, "How do you feel?" Yu Wangyuan pondered for a few seconds and said, "He seems easy to talk to and polite, but in reality that's not necessarily the case. At such a young age, with such strength, which one of them isn't young and arrogant?" Lu Xiaofei muttered to herself. Tap tap tap. Zhang Shouyin led Lu Qing forward and asked in a seemingly casual manner, "Do you have a specialized legal advisor?" "Yeah, my senior sister introduced him," Lu Qing answered calmly. Before signing the contract with the Longhu Club, he had asked his senior sister to find a reliable lawyer for help. Shi Yuejian directly introduced Lin Xiukong, who was from the Ice God sect, to him. After that, both parties were very satisfied. Even though Lu Qing had to pay a hefty sum, he really got what he paid for. He picked out all the unfavorable terms, leaving the Longhu Club speechless. They could only make changes. Zhang Shouyin nodded slightly, stopped at the elevator door and pressed the up button. "Do you have anyone to help you with your business matters?" "Not at the moment," Lu Qing smiled. When the elevator door opened, Zhang Shouyin stepped in and said thoughtfully, "You can let the club handle this first. You haven't reached physical invulnerability, so there aren't many such matters. There's no need to specially find someone. Moreover, we only take a 10% commission." Lu Qing nodded. "Then draft a contract for me to take a look." "Sure." Zhang Shouyin heaved a sigh of relief. He walked into the corridor on the 5th floor and came to an office with a mahogany door. He knocked 3 times rhythmically. "Come in." A voice as clear as spring water sounded from within. At first it sounded like an 18 or 19-year-old. However, upon closer inspection, one could feel a hint of maturity. Zhang Xiaoyan turned the doorknob and pushed open the door. He said with a smile, "Empress Luo Lucheng is here." Behind the dark red desk, a woman with black hair and a bun looked up, revealing a face that was both happy and angry at the same time. She seemed to be of foreign or ethnic descent. Her facial features were delicate and elegant. She was beautiful and moving. Time hadn't left a mark on her face, only leaving behind an air of elegance. Even though Lu Qing was used to seeing fairies, his eyes lit up. Empress Luo looks better in real life than on TV. No wonder she could change her title. It's all because of her looks. As expected of a famous beauty of the previous generation. While he was silently complaining, Ning Zitong smiled faintly and said to Zhang Xiaoyan, "Sorry to bother you. Sorry for the trouble. Go and do your own thing." "Yes." Zhang Xiaoyan replied excitedly. He left the room in high spirits as though he was on steroids and closed the door. "Hello, Senior Ning." Hello, Senior Empress Luo." Lu Qing had almost forgotten the rule that martial artists with titles had to be addressed by their titles. Ning Zitong spat and smiled unpleasantly. "Senior? Am I very old? Call me sister. Sister Ning. Do you understand?" Lu Qing was dumbfounded. "Senior, where did your dignity go? Although we can be considered to be of the same generation as my master," Ning Zitong smiled and said, "This is courtesy. Do you understand? Women are all obsessed with age. Ko often complains that she's no longer a 17 or 18-year-old girl." Lu Qing's thoughts drifted as he followed her advice. "Hello, Sister Ning. That's more like it." Ning Zitong put down the fountain pen that could turn into a hidden weapon at any moment. She stood up gracefully and said with a smile, "Come with me to meet those guys. After all, you're our quasi-physical invulnerability expert." Meeting the other physical invulnerability experts? Was he going to meet the Dragon King? Lu Qing suddenly felt a little excited. He didn't notice that Empress Luo had left her seat and walked to his side. The sweet and clear scent of perfume entered his nose. He came back to his senses and saw Empress Luo's long bohemian dress that reached her knees. Noticing Lu Qing's gaze, Ning Zitong laughed self-deprecatingly. "When I was young, I liked simple and elegant dresses the most. Now, I've fallen in love with bright colors." "Yeah." Lu Qing didn't know how to continue. He changed the topic and asked, "Ning Qian, Sister Ning, are we meeting the Dragon King and the rest?" "Yes." Ning Zitong opened the door and led the way out. She said with a smile, "They're not like me. They're easy to talk to and get along with. However, once you get a feel for them, they're not particularly weird. For someone who can achieve physical invulnerability at such a young age, the first thing that distinguishes them is their pride. Secondly, they're quite self-centered. Tricking the Dragon King is right." Lu Qing listened silently and followed half a step behind. Turning into the corridor, they entered the room labeled Conference Room. The first thing Lu Qing saw was the broad shoulders and tall back of the Dragon King. He was standing by the window opposite, looking out. He wasn't exactly a burly man, but he gave off a soul-stirring sense of majesty. To the left of the conference table sat a giant. Even if he didn't stand up, one could imagine his muscular figure of over 2 meters. This was the other first-pin mighty one of the Longhu Club, Optimus Prime Longzhen. Even though he was tall and strong, his flexibility and footwork weren't inferior to the others. Longzhen's skin was tanned to bronze. He didn't have a single strand of hair on his head, which was as smooth as a mirror. His 2 thick eyebrows looked like they were outlined by ink, giving him a ferocious look. He was squinting his beady eyes and sizing up Lu Qing with a half-smile. Opposite Longzhen was a girl with short hair. Her skin was tanned, and the contours of her face were gentle. However, there was a hidden fierceness that made it hard to look straight at her. "This is my disciple, Wuxia. She achieved physical invulnerability 3 years ago. She's still a 3rd pin." Ning Zitong extended her hand and introduced, "Her nickname is Martial Arts Fanatic. You can roughly imagine her personality. Just like now. Even though she's gentle and quiet, I'm sure she's muttering in her heart that Master is so bored to meet Lu Qing. If I have the time, I might as well go to the volcano laboratory and practice my physical invulnerability secret arts." Wuxia seemed to have been exposed. She helplessly shouted in a low voice, "Master." Ning Zitong smiled and stopped bullying her disciple. She pointed at Longzhen and said, "This fatty may look fierce, but other than his girly mouth, he's actually a very humorous and kind-hearted person. Of course, his ego is also ridiculously strong. He's always claimed that he's number 1, number 2, and number 3. He can't stand the Dragon King and challenges him every few days. Don't be surprised if you see him bruised and swollen, or being carried to the emergency room. Empress Luo, I don't like what you're saying. What do you mean my ego is ridiculously strong? Long Zhen opened his beady eyes and nagged, Lu Yen is our coach and member. He's from your master's generation. He's been practicing martial arts for more than 40 years, but he still hasn't matured and is extremely arrogant. He didn't come today, but he said that he'll meet him when Lu Cheng makes the great leap. The second half of Long Zhen's sentence was directed at Lu Cheng. Then he continued, I claim to be number 1 in heaven and number 2 in earth, while I'm number 3. However, Lu Yen has always said, I'm the only one apart from heaven. Look whose ego is stronger. Him. Lu Cheng almost burst out laughing. However, he's not the one with the strongest ego. The one with the strongest ego is the one behind him. Guess what? Long Zhen pointed at Dragon King Qin Shi Tao with his chin. He doesn't even care about God. He's the only one in the world. You don't have the will to rule. That's how you'll be for the rest of your life. A deep, magnetic voice sounded. Dragon King turned around. He was handsome with sharp eyebrows, bright eyes, and a mature aura. Lu Cheng was agitated. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. All right. There's a press conference later. Lu Cheng will be joining our Longhu Club. Other than me, there's another person to hold the fort. Who's going? Ning Zitong didn't raise her voice. Martial arts fanatic Guijia lowered her head and practiced her swordsmanship with her fingers. Long Zhen was deep in thought and seemed to be struggling. Dragon King Qin Shi Tao put his hands behind his back and walked step by step towards the door of the conference room. Silence filled the room. Before he left, Qin Shi Tao didn't turn back. He said in a deep voice, Let's go. P.S. This chapter is a little long, so it's late. Looking for recommendations on Monday. Chapter 541. In the large conference room on the first floor of the Longhu Club, the invited media set up their cameras and focused on the 3 people on stage. Empress Luo, Dragon King Qin Shi Tao, and Lu Cheng had all changed into navy blue uniforms. They were elegant, dignified, and full of energy, displaying the different styles of martial artists. Lu Cheng, why did you choose to join the Longhu Club and not stay in the Wuxia Club? Everyone knows that you are from the Ice God sect. A reporter got permission and stood up to ask. Lu Cheng was prepared for this. He smiled calmly and said, Longhu has always been my home team since I started watching professional matches. Also, I have to thank my old master. He told me not to be constrained by sectarian views. The Longhu Club is open, tolerant, and beyond the individual level. I thought about this answer for a few days and revised it several times. Coach Yen also reviewed and modified it. Cough cough. In front of the TV screen, Geezer sure cursed while holding a bottle of wine. Is this brat trying to push all the blame onto me? If it were in ancient times, this kind of disciple would be hung up in public. Only I, your master, have a tough body and strong strength, so I can take it. If you don't understand the unique skills of the restriction sect in the future, I will teach you a lesson. The reporter was very satisfied with his answer. He wanted to take this opportunity to start a conversation about whether the sect's organizational structure was not in line with modern society. However, the host was quick and didn't give him a chance to mess things up. He picked the next person to ask. Dragon King, there was a rumor saying that you personally called to invite Lu Cheng. Is that true? Asked a short-haired female reporter with a China satellite TV tag on her chest. Qin Shi Tao's expression didn't change. It's true. Then what made you do this? As far as I know, you have never looked at anyone so favorably before, asked the short-haired female reporter excitedly. Because he has enough potential and his Emperor Yen force is not bad, said Qin Shi Tao calmly. Then, he raised his hand and gestured for a similar question to be typed. However, none of the reporters who liked to play the devil's advocate raised an opinion. At this moment in the Longhu Club forum, a plumber eating mushrooms wrote, pounding the ground laughing expression. The Dragon King is a good senior, but he's definitely not a good opponent. When Lu Cheng has enough potential, the Dragon King will cherish him. But when Lu Cheng turns his potential into reality and catches up with the Dragon King, I bet that the Dragon King will try his best to suppress him and not let him make a comeback. You're slandering my Dragon King again. Pig riding knight, said with disdain. How can you call it black? I'm a die-hard supporter of the Dragon King. Everyone knows his character very well. I just made a deduction based on the actual situation. A plumber eating mushrooms replied comically, to worship someone, you have to worship even their flaws. I'm such a narrow-minded person. Okamoto's fan, immediately mocked. You're just a fan who's naturally black in the depths of his heart. Bah, if Lu Qing advances by leaps and bounds in the future and threatens Dragon King's position in the club, how will you feel? A plumber eating mushrooms asked, spreading out his hands. I'll be a little unhappy. After all, my original name is the Dragon King. However, the Dragon King definitely won't be surpassed. Even if he falls behind for a moment, he can still catch up. All these years, hasn't he been performing such miracles for us? Back then, the warrior sage was so abnormal that almost all the mighty ones were in despair. But the Dragon King didn't. Unparalleled Dragon King, answered, living up to his nickname. Wonton Seller said while looking at her fingers, I'll be very conflicted. Their discussion on this matter didn't last long. The press conference came to an end. Lu Qing completed a group photo with Empress Luo and the Dragon King, officially joining the Longhu Club. In just a few minutes, the headlines on Weibo were published. Lu Qing chooses Huadu. The Dragon King has a successor. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The martial arts sections of all the major portals uploaded similar content. The battle between the heavenly sons of the era has been decided. Joining the Longhu Club. A new starting point. A win-win decision. Breaking the prejudice of sections. Modern martial artist Lu Qing. In the forum after seeing the group photo, above the sky, a girl who loved rock and roll said, friends on the tree can come down now. There's no need to watch anymore. Lu Qing has indeed joined the club. Everyone slide down in an orderly manner. Don't cause trampling damage. Ha, I'm so happy, so happy. My idol has joined my favorite force, said Brahmin, who was in her 3rd year of middle school. Let's add a friendly link to Lu Qing's fan forum. We're all family from now on. Brahmin, have you been infected with silly nightfall stupidity? Why are you laughing like that? Joked unparalleled Dragon King. What? You don't know. That silly child just rolled off the bed laughing. Luckily we're at home and not at school. Brahmin puffed up her chest and raised her head, indicating that she wasn't on the same level as a certain someone. While the two forums were cheering, Lu Qing finished his interview with a few media outlets. He watched as the Dragon King left majestically and followed Ning Zitong to the restaurant. What's the volcano laboratory? He asked curiously. Guojie, the martial arts fanatic, and Qin Shitao, the Dragon King, both mentioned this term. In ancient times, after reaching the physical invulnerability stage of the fire sect, one would choose to train in an environment similar to the depths of a volcano. However, it was full of danger. Even a physical invulnerability mighty one wouldn't be able to withstand an accident. Ning Zitong briefly explained, the volcano laboratory uses the power of modern technology to imitate the conditions in the depths of a volcano. Although the actual effect isn't as exaggerated, the intensity can be adjusted automatically. It's a godly weapon that aids training. Once you're close to the physical invulnerability stage, you can use it. As for the Ice Sect Environmental Laboratory, we don't have one in our club, but the military does. Lu Qing was excited. He felt like he had come into contact with a different world. As they spoke, Ning Zitong led him into the restaurant. It was already past lunchtime, but there were various steamers on display for the convenience of the mighty one. You'll be eating here in the future. Try it. Watching's breakfast snacks are pretty good. Ning Zitong smiled and pointed ahead. Lu Qing looked around and saw a notice posted on the wall. Breakfast was from 7 to 9, lunch was from 12 to 2, and dinner was from 5:30 to 7:30. If there were leftovers, they would be kept warm. This allowed the mighty one, who was a glutton, to eat more and less until the club closed at 8. After busying himself for a while, Lu Qing, who hadn't had breakfast yet, placed 3 stacks of steamers on the table. First, he took a picture of Yenjika. Opening the steamer, he picked up a crab roe bun and swallowed it in a few bites. Satisfied, he exclaimed, "Not bad. It wasn't any worse than the ones in Huaching restaurant." After stuffing himself with food for a while and filling up half his stomach, Lu Qing deliberated and asked, "Sister Ning, what's the club's usual schedule like? Are there holidays?" "Holidays?" Ning Zitong sneered. Her eyebrows relaxed like a blooming flower, revealing a hint of maturity. "We're all adults. We're all mighty ones known as monsters. Who doesn't have a personality? Why are there so many rules? The club's daily schedule is very flexible. As long as you don't miss the scheduled matches, you can come and go as you please. It's all up to you. However, there are all kinds of facilities here. There are specialized trainers, so it's definitely better than training on your own. Also, the reserve team will have a session with a physical invulnerability mighty one every week. It's from 3 to 5 in the afternoon on Monday. Unless it's something important, I suggest you try your best to attend. If you need to take time off, tell the assistant team in advance. You don't want to waste food in the chef's efforts. Who knows that every grain on the plate is hard work? Phew, that's fine. I'll plan which matches I'm going to participate in. When I'm free, I should be able to make a trip to America every month and stay there for 4 to 5 days. When I'm busy, it might even take up to 2 to 3 months. But I can make use of the time to stay at home for a few days. Lu Cheng's mind raced as he made plans. Before he knew it, he had swept away all the dishes on the table, such as abalone juice and chicken feet, white sugar cakes, and shumai. There was no need to tidy up. Ning Zitong brought him to the training area of the reserve team. It was in the northwest area of the first floor. You'll get to know them today. The main thing is to practice the Fire Sex dance stage chapter. Try to get a basic grasp of it within a month. Ning Zitong said casually as they walked. The club has other secret arts such as the dark sex, flickering light, and passing shadow. I'm the best at that. Also, there's a martial art that combines the incomplete golden bell shield and immortal flesh. Long Jin is pretty good at it. Once you've mastered the Fire Sex dance stage chapter, you can come into contact with similar things and broaden your horizons. All right. Lu Qing nodded happily. I feel like there's a lot to learn. How exciting. This is one of the joys of practicing martial arts. After walking for a few minutes, Ning Zitong stopped in front of a huge door. She took more than 10 seconds to put on an elegant and faint smile. Then she pushed her hand forward and walked in elegantly. She said to the martial artists around the area, "Everyone, come over here for a moment." Yu Wangyuan and the rest retracted their stance and greeted respectfully, "Empress Luo." They gathered in front of the beautiful, dignified Ning Zitong. Lu Qing noticed that Lu Xiaofei, Yu Wangyuan, and the rest were clearly slower by half a step. They stood behind a martial artist in a clustered manner. And this martial artist was someone he recognized. Tu Zheng, who was close to physical invulnerability. His forehead was full, and his square face looked like it was carved by a knife. He was masculine and fierce. His eyes were neither big nor small. His pupils were dark and fiery. Ning Zitong smiled faintly and said to Tu Zheng and Lu Qing, "I won't introduce the two of you. You should know each other, right?" "Yes." Tu Zheng laughed heartily. He looked at Lu Qing and said, "I heard that you were coming, but I only confirmed it today. I was supposed to have a welcoming feast tonight to welcome you back. However, I didn't know when you were coming and was arranged to do something else. How about tomorrow night? Let's get together tomorrow night and get to know each other better. What do you think?" "Sure," Lu Qing replied with a smile. He wasn't an introvert, but he wasn't arrogant either. He knew how to get along well with the people around him so that he wouldn't be troubled by trivial matters. Chapter 542. As a physical invulnerability expert, Ning Zitong didn't stay for long. After a brief introduction, she left the northwest area of the first floor. Lu Qing roughly recognized the few members of the reserve team. Excluding Yu Wangyuan and Lu Xiaofei, who lived in the Sky Capital Garden, and the team leader, Tu Zheng, who occasionally represented the Longhu Club in top-level professional competitions, the remaining two were a man and a woman. The man's surname was Sun, and his name was Jianlin. He had a medium build and was strong and stocky. There was nothing special about his features and he had a typical face. However, as an inhuman mighty one, he had a hidden glow in his eyes. His manly charm was born from extreme confidence, and he wasn't much inferior to the average handsome guy. The woman's name was Jia Lu. Her eyes were bright and watery, but they didn't contain any gentleness. She was used to standing at the side and looking at everyone like a bystander. It was as though she didn't care about anything, as though everything she saw and heard was nothing more than a reality TV show. According to Empress Luo's introduction, the 5 of them were all below 30. The oldest was Tu Zheng, who was 28 years old and had high hopes of achieving physical invulnerability. The youngest was Jia Lu, who was 24 years old. She had broken through to the inhuman stage before the Chinese New Year, and was transferred from the Dan stage group to the reserve team. The rest were Yu Wangyuan and Sun Jianlin, who were 27 years old and had obtained their 4th pin certificates 2 years ago. Lu Xiaofei was 25 years old and had just passed the ranking event in April. Each of them had the potential to fight for the top 2 spots in the major sects of the Wuxia Club. However, the Longhu Club had 5 of them. Apart from that, there were a few who were at the same level as them. They were following other teams that they had close ties with to fight in the 2nd or 3rd level professional competitions. Every February or March, the core team would reconsider who would go out to train, who would stay to break through to the physical invulnerability stage or strengthen their foundation, and who would be assigned tasks to eliminate unfamiliarity when they were transferred to management or the army. The number of Inhumans below 30 clearly showed the strength of the Longhu Club. They were definitely worthy of being at the top. Lu Qing exchanged a few pleasantries with them. Then, under Tu Zheng's guidance, he confirmed his personal resting room and entered the Dan stage training room. He freely pondered over the visualization diagrams of the fire sect, detailed explanations of moves and notes. Every member of the reserve team had their own personal resting room in the northeast area of the first floor. It was a small room of about 70 square meters. From 9:30 to 11 a.m., Lu Qing didn't do any training. Instead, he roughly skimmed through the fire sect's Dan chapter chapters. He had a general understanding of the fire sect. They didn't require no training, but there were many repeaters and even more unsuitable ones. And they didn't need not practice. Practice but there were many repeaters and even more there were many unsuitable. They had no need. Practice. After this round of sorting, Lu Qing confirmed that there were only 23 Dan stage unique skills left to practice. Some of them were the application techniques of force. Lifting his head from the pile of old papers, he picked up his phone. Glancing at the time, he walked out of the training room and returned to his personal resting room. He sat on the sofa and video chatted with Ko. In his plan, the time between 11 a.m. and 12:30 a.m. was reserved for foreign lovers. Unless there was something extremely important, they would do it regardless of rain or shine. It was summertime in Connecticut, America. It was between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. Yenjika had the most free time of the day. It was the sweet time before bed. However, there were always exceptions. Due to the delay of a member of her team, she was still a little short of submitting her report tomorrow. She estimated that it would take another 2 hours. She didn't mention it. Instead, she excitedly video chatted with Lu Qing. They talked about his first experience in the Longhu Club and the few mighty ones with physical invulnerability. Yeah, no matter how big the world is, communicating with Cheng is the most important thing. At most, I'll stay up late. I'm Heroine Yin who has mastered the wholeness formula. As for the report, I'll tell Cheng when the video is about to end. That way he won't keep worrying and nagging. At the reserve team's practice field in the Northwest District, there were various facilities. Leader 2, Lu Qing left the training room at 11 a.m. and returned to his personal resting room. Yu Wangyuan, who had a round face, came back from his stroll outside. He lowered his voice and said to Tu Zheng, "It's only been slightly more than an hour." Although he said that he controlled his voice, it was just for show. He didn't use secret voice transmission, nor did he control his voice to be as soft as a mosquito's. Lu Xiaofei, Sun Jianlin, and Jia Lu were paying attention. When they heard that, they slowed down their movements and listened quietly. Tu Zheng's lips curled. He laughed and said, "He's the heavenly son of China. Maybe an hour of practice is equivalent to a day's worth of practice for us? He has his talent and we have our hard work. There's no need to be envious. All right, let's continue with our practice. If there's anything you can't figure out, let's discuss it together. All right, I have something to do in the afternoon. You guys can arrange it yourselves." His expression relaxed and his moves became more natural. At 12:30 p.m., Lu Qing heard that his little fairy had to stay up late to report. He was angry, amused, touched, and heartbroken at the same time. However, he didn't harp on this matter. According to the experience that little Ming had imparted to him, he had to make the girl feel like she was putting in effort from time to time. Otherwise things wouldn't last long. After giving a few reminders, Lu Qing came to the dining room. Seeing that there was a new Xing province cuisine district here, he took a basin, a bigger bowl, and filled it with 20 kgs of steamed beef vermicelli, stir-fried shredded pork with ginger, and other dishes. Lastly, he filled a big bowl of bitter bamboo shoots with meat slices soup. The taste of bitter bamboo shoots wasn't Lu Cheng's favorite, but the soup it made was refreshing and delicious, appetizing and relieving the heat. The meat slices were tender and delicious. Dipping it in the water, it was delicious and went well with rice. Other than that, he also went to the Guangnan cuisine district to get a roast goose. It had sweet skin and fragrant meat. It was fat but not greasy. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Lu Qing took a bowl of mung bean sugar water and drank it leisurely to get rid of the taste of meat and vegetables in his mouth. He suddenly thought of something. He took out his phone and sent a message to Fatty Jiang, "Do you want to meet tonight?" Yeah. Jiang Fei replied quickly. I'm just waiting to rip you off. What time? About 6:30. Let's meet at the school gate. Send me your location. Lu Qing picked up a slice of watermelon and took a bite. Fatty Jiang should be at the university town, right? After confirming this, Lu Qing wanted to inform Amen via WeChat so that the kitchen didn't have to prepare his dinner. However, after thinking for a while, he chose to call the office of the assistant team directly. Hello, you are? Asked a man with a strong Guangnan accent. I'm Lu Qing. Lu Qing gave his identity succinctly. Hello. Mr. Lu, what can I do for you? The man was very enthusiastic. I have something to do tonight. I won't be eating at the club or returning to Sky Capital Garden. Lu Qing explained the situation. Okay, I'll inform the logistics team and car team immediately. Mr. Lu, what time will you be leaving? Where are you going? I'll help you arrange the use of the car. The man asked eagerly. Every physical invulnerability expert was assigned a nanny car. The inhuman experts of the reserve team rotated between 3 cars. Those who were free would use them. Those who were not free would have to apologize. However, under normal circumstances they had sufficient resources. This was because Tu Zheng and the rest had their own cars. It was just that they were too lazy to drive them occasionally. I have to reach the university town at 6:30. Lu Qing had originally planned to use his phone app to call for a car. However, since there was a benefit, it would be a waste not to use it. Okay, I'll arrange it immediately. The man seized the opportunity and said, take down my phone number. I'll send you a message to confirm it later. My name is Huang Bin. My phone number is. Forget it, you don't have to remember it. I'll send you a message directly. Okay. Lu Qing didn't reject. The staff of the assistant team had a good service attitude. In the assistant team office, Huang Bin, who had a 370 hairstyle, typed a message excitedly. He wrote his phone number and name. After which, he glanced at the paper address book and sent it to Lu Qing. Immediately after, he hurriedly arranged the cars and gave the best one to Lu Qing. To him, this was a great opportunity. The assistant team had the supervisor and deputy supervisor, as well as the personal assistant of a physical invulnerability expert. They all had high salaries, face and status. This was especially so for the latter. Sometimes he was equivalent to the spokesperson of a physical invulnerability expert. Wherever he went, he would be surrounded by people. Even officials and bosses had to curry favor with him. As for the reserve team and the dance stage team, they didn't have a fixed target to follow. Therefore, they couldn't enjoy the treatment of a physical invulnerability expert's follower. They were considered ordinary staff. Their treatment wasn't bad, but that was it. With the property prices in Huaqing, it was wishful thinking to want to settle down and buy a house here. Most people could do similar jobs, but they were highly replaceable. As a result, their salary couldn't be compared to that of a designated assistant of a physical invulnerability expert. In the reserve team, the two most likely to reach the physical invulnerability stage were Tu Zheng and Lu Qing. The former had a good relationship with Sun Tingting and would look for her every time. The latter was new to the club and was unfamiliar with the place. It went without saying who would be easier to befriend. As long as I can gain Lu Cheng's recognition and become his trusted servant, wouldn't I be able to reach the pinnacle of my life when he makes the leap and appoints me as his assistant? Back then, in order to take on Lu Cheng's mission, everyone was locked in a fierce fight. Amen, the newcomer with the least experience, benefited from it. Now my chance is back. Lu Qing didn't try to guess what Huang Bin was thinking. He didn't care at all. He spent the entire afternoon in the training room, studying the diagrams and practicing his techniques. The more he practiced, the more shocked and excited he became. Boom. He was in the training field attached to the training room. He extended his fist and punched the air, causing flames to sweep outwards. The 13th move of the fire sect, Scorch. This may seem like the simplest move, but there are many mysterious techniques to it. The more I practice and practice, the more I feel like I'm still lacking. Lu Qing compared the way he usually used the move and felt that today was different from yesterday. As expected of a move that had been modified by generations of mighty ones. Even the Dragon King had improved on it. It could really be said to be well practiced. At 5:30 in the afternoon, Lu Qing pulled himself out of his obsession. He took a shower, rested for a while, put on his backpack and walked out of the door. According to Huang Bin, there would be a car waiting for him there. P.S. Please recommend me. Chapter 543. As they approached the entrance of the club, Lu Cheng saw a tanned and skinny young man with a parted hairstyle walking towards them. He spoke with a heavy Guangnan accent. "Hello, Mr. Lu. I'm Huang Bin. The car is ready at the entrance." "Sorry to trouble you," Lu Cheng thanked him politely. "You don't have to be so polite. This is my job," replied Huang Bin with a smile. Huang Bin answered with a big smile. He turned around and led Lu Cheng out of the gate. They boarded a black MPV. Lu Cheng sized it up casually and felt that the interior was soft yellow. It was more luxurious than the one in the morning. There were curtains and partitions between the driver's seat and the driver's seat. Through the walkie-talkie, absolute privacy was guaranteed. There was a cabinet at the bar with famous wines in it. The refrigerator was divided into 2 levels. Half was for cold drinks and the other half was for ice and ice cream. "To the university town?" Huang Bin picked up the walkie-talkie and said. Although he had already sent the destination to the driver, he couldn't let go of the opportunity to show off. After doing all this, he didn't stay any longer. He got out of the car with a smile so as not to delay the time of the future physical invulnerability. Lu Cheng nodded at him and opened the fridge. He took out a bottle of mineral water, poured himself a glass and drank. At the entrance of the club, Yu Wangyuan and Lu Xiaofei, who were waiting for the car to return to Sky Capital Garden, witnessed everything. They had mixed feelings. The latter pouted and said, "The assistant team is really snobbish. They're practically at the beck and call. If I can achieve physical invulnerability, I definitely won't pick among them. In comparison, Amin is still alright. She's so warm and considerate to everyone. Their snobbery might be what the club wants." Yu Wangyuan's round face was full of self-deprecating smiles. "What do you mean?" Lu Xiaofei played with her short hair. "To create a difference in levels and create the beauty of special privileges. If physical invulnerability, quasi-physical invulnerability, and inhuman are treated the same, how can the difference in status be reflected? How can we be motivated to catch up?" Yu Wangyuan replied calmly with a sigh. "To the club, getting a few more cars and a few more drivers is just a small matter. But why do we have to do that? If you want others to treat you seriously and fawn on you, then you have to work hard to improve yourself and become the most popular person in their eyes." Lu Xiaofei listened thoughtfully and nodded slightly. "That's really the feeling. When I was in the dance stage group, I didn't have the opportunity to coordinate the use of the car at all times. Every day when I missed the shuttle bus, I had to think of other ways. The people in the assistant group only came back once in a few days, and they didn't even show up for no reason. At that time, I was filled with the desire to stand out and enter the reserve group." Seeing that his teammates agreed, Yu Wangyuan opened his mouth. "With our realm and strength, if we aren't in Longhu, we can be the cream of the crop in any province or city. There will be plenty of opportunities, VIP treatment and various benefits. But this way we won't have the motivation to push forward. We won't lack anything and there won't be anyone to compare with. It's very comfortable, and it's inevitable that our willpower will soften. If I had chosen the police when I left the army, I would definitely have a high position in the provincial department. But I still have the ambition to become a true mighty one." The reason why the reserve group model is so popular in the top professional competitions is not only because we can often receive guidance from physical invulnerability experts, but also because there are so many inhumans together. It's inevitable that there will be comparisons and competition between them. This is very beneficial for training. Lu Xiaofei exhaled and said, "That's true. That's indeed the case. My biggest goal now is..." Halfway through her sentence she suddenly laughed. After a few seconds she said, "To surpass you. Very good. My goal is to catch up with Leader 2. Yu Wangyuan laughed softly. Lu Xiaofei took a deep look at him. She felt that this friendly-looking teammate of hers was much more profound than usual. He was born in the army and had a lot of experience. He's not like me, a blank piece of paper, who rose up step by step in Longhu Martial Arts School." Lu Xiaofei muttered to herself and said doubtfully, "But with so many high-pin martial artists gathered together for training, it will also create a lot of psychological stress for everyone. If they can't compare to others, they will fall behind in competition. It's fine if it happens twice or thrice, but once it happens too often the impact will be huge. If it happens repeatedly for a few years, even the strongest willpower will be shaken, right? That's why there are arrangements for us to train in other teams. Firstly, it's to train in actual combat. Secondly, it's to give us confidence. If we really can't do it, then we'll switch to management, the police or the military. There are inhumans quitting every year. It's not like you haven't seen it. That's how great the pressure of competition is." Wang Yuan looked out of the door and suddenly laughed. Alright, our bus is here. When we get home, remember the feeling of being agitated by Lu Qing. Turn it into motivation and strive not to be caught up by him within a year. Work hard. Lu Xiaofei waved her fist heroically. Beside the door of the silver-gray business van, Aman's face was so dark that it looked like water could drip out of it. She had witnessed the scene of Huang Bin fawning over Lu Qing from the second-floor office. She felt like she was stabbed in the back. I tried my best to be fair and not compete with the seniors in the office. When a pie fell from the sky and I was sent by the supervisor to welcome Lu Qing, I was in fear and trepidation. I didn't dare to have wishful thinking and only wanted to gain recognition with my work attitude. Who knew that Huang Bin, a senior employee who was usually all smiles, actually contacted Lu Qing privately and interfered. He usually acted like he had a good impression of me and was rather ambiguous. But when it comes to benefits, he's actually like this. Treacherous villain. It's really not easy to survive in the workplace. The business van drove smoothly. Although there were occasional traffic jams, they still arrived at the university town at 6:20 p.m. They made a detour to the entrance of Jiang Fei's school. Just stop here. You can go back now. Sorry for the trouble. Lu Qing glanced out of the window and saw Fatty Jiang. Hence, he picked up the walkie-talkie to communicate with the driver. Mr. Lu, I can wait for a while longer. I'll send you to the dining location before leaving. The driver took the initiative to suggest. That's fine too. I'll ask where I'm going. If it's on campus, I won't trouble you. Lu Qing watched as the door opened by itself. He lowered his head and got off the van. He took a big stride forward and approached Fatty Jiang, who was wearing a gray t-shirt, light yellow shorts and black sandals. He reached out and patted Fatty Jiang's right shoulder while he dodged to the left. Fatty Jiang was still fooled hundreds of times. He looked to the right in a daze for a few seconds before regaining his senses. He looked to the left and complained, "Why are you, an inhuman mighty one, making fun of an ordinary person like me? Before I started practicing martial arts, I also didn't see you find the right place." Lu Qing laughed. "Where are we going to eat?" Fatty Jiang was getting more and more mellow. "Let's go to an old restaurant. The taste of their white-cut chicken. TSK. Let's not talk about it. I go there every week for a sumptuous meal." Jiang Fei swallowed his saliva. "How far is it?" Lu Qing was getting hungry from his words. Jiang Fei looked into the distance. "About 10 to 20 minutes by foot. Then we'll take a car there. Send me the address." Lu Qing patted Fatty Jiang and gestured for him to follow him. After getting into the car, Jiang Fei opened his eyes wide and looked around cautiously. He praised from the bottom of his heart, "Qing, your treatment is awesome." He gave him a thumbs up. "Aren't all commercial cars like this?" Lu Qing asked in amusement. He picked up the walkie-talkie and sent the address to the driver. "I know." Jiang Fei smiled embarrassedly. "I mean, there's a special driver." "It's not a special one. It's just that I can use it." Lu Qing answered honestly. Jiang Fei nodded. When he felt the car start, he subconsciously looked at the street outside the window. He saw his schoolmates coming and going while enduring the heat. He was in the cool air with cold drinks in front of him. After driving for 10 minutes, the commercial car stopped in front of the Lin's restaurant. After seeing the driver leave, the two entered the restaurant and ordered 2 white-cut chicken, 2 roast geese, 2 sets of barbecued pork and 4 plates of rice noodle roll. The waiter was stunned by the order. "Take away if you can't finish it." Fatty Jiang shouted in annoyance. The waiter suddenly understood. After sitting down, Jiang Fei asked about the Longhu Club curiously. Then he smiled and pointed outside. "This place is close to 3 universities. There are many beautiful girls coming and going. I look at them for a long time every time. Although I don't have a girlfriend, I feel satisfied. It's like I have the whole forest." "Your attitude is called 'Look, my picturesque country'?" Lu Qing teased Fatty Jiang. "What can I do? I'm also desperate." Jiang Fei spread his hands. "Last winter, a few schoolmates came to Xioshan to play. After knowing your Lu Qing, they were very enthusiastic about me. They kept trying to introduce girls to me, but they all failed miserably. Then I can't help you. You can't lose weight." Lu Qing took the opportunity to provoke him. "Sigh, I'll just leave it to fate. Maybe one day someone will discover my rich inner qualities." Jiang Fei laughed at himself. They chatted for a while on this topic. When they talked about finding a job, Jiang Fei said with a distressed expression, "I can't be like you and become a tycoon after graduation. Actually, with my major, if I want to work in a factory, I'm not afraid that no one will want me. But after thinking about it, I feel reluctant. In the second half of the year, I'll apply for other resumes. Anyway, if I don't stay in Huaqing, I'll go to Gaofeng. I won't consider other places. Well, Gaofeng has been developing well in recent years. Lu Qing didn't know about Jiang Fei's major, so he didn't express his opinion casually. Sometimes I miss high school. I didn't have to think about anything else. I didn't have to choose. I only had to focus on studying. Once I was free, I could play with my heart. Unlike now. Jiang Fei sighed. Once you enter society, you'll feel that university is better. Lu Qing answered seriously. I prefer university to high school. In high school, I felt that my mind was not mature enough. I didn't know how to appreciate life, so I lived without a care in the world. But in university, I gradually formed my views in various aspects. I have myself and am relatively free. I know. You have a goddess to accompany you in university. Jiang Fei picked up a piece of chicken and stuffed it into his mouth. Don't expose me. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. Reminiscing about the past and looking forward to the future, the two chatted until the sky was completely dark. Then they slowly left Linji and strolled to the entrance of Jiang Fei's university. After saying goodbye to each other, Jiang Fei strolled back to the dormitory. He saw that his roommates were already online playing games. Fatty, why are you so late? Did you go on a date? A classmate took a break from the busy and joked. No, I don't have a girlfriend. Fatty Jiang said self-deprecatingly. Eating with my high school classmates. With the heavenly son of the era, Lu Qing. Oh. His roommates didn't say much and continued to indulge in the game. Chapter 544. Ding. It was rare for Lu Qing to receive a message. He picked it up and saw that it was a typhoon warning in Huaqing. In the next few days, a disaster would hit Huaqing. It said that it happens a few times a year along the southeast coast. Lu Qing thought about it casually and started to think about where to do his morning training in the storm. Should he come to the club earlier? He used his chopsticks to tear a small hole in the crab roe soup dumpling in front of him, letting the soup slowly overflow and fill the entire plate. He then took a picture and sent it to Yanjika with a sneaky smile emoji. After returning from the university town last night, he chatted with his wife as usual, called his mother, chatted with Talker and the others on QQ, played 7 to 8 rounds of games and read novels. This morning he woke up on time and trained hard, focusing on the technique of the fire sect's 13th move, Scorch. At 8:15 a.m., he met up with Lu Xiaofei, Yuan Yuan, and the rest. They took a car to the club and enjoyed all kinds of breakfast in the restaurant. I want to eat. Yanjika replied with a teary face emoji. I just finished my morning training. Who's showing off a big meal? Lu Qing snickered. It was summer break at Connecticut University. His wife's homework was coming to an end along with the submission of the report. Her parents-in-law had flown to America and planned to bring her on a 2-week trip before returning together. At that time, little Fairy would spend a few days with her grandparents before flying over for a family reunion. Because it was too hot to go out, and because he didn't know much about Huaqing, Lu Qing suggested that Yanjika buy a house during the winter break. In summer, shopping, eating at old restaurants, and lazing around at home with the air conditioner was the way to go. Furthermore, Longhu Club's salary was paid monthly. It was 800,000 a month. If it wasn't enough, it would be paid in one lump sum at the end of the year. If he wanted to pay the full amount, he would have to save for a while. Just as Lu Qing buried his head in the soup and stuffed the crust into his mouth and chewed with relish, the girl said, I get hungry quickly. Can't I? Okay. When you come to Huaqing, I'll bring you to the club's restaurant. Family members get a discount. Lu Qing smirked as he typed. Suddenly he felt someone approaching. He looked up and saw Amin in a round collar white shirt walking over. She smiled and asked, Mr. Lu, what do you think of the dishes from Xing province yesterday? Not bad. The craftsmanship is very authentic. It's not that kind of local improvement. However, there are a few dishes that I don't quite like. I can make some adjustments. For example, the beef and sour soup. Lu Qing honestly expressed his thoughts, not intending to be modest. In the next few years he might have to eat the dishes cooked by that chef. He couldn't endure it for a while. Amin took out a pen and paper from her handbag and took notes seriously. In the end she smiled and said, I'll tell the chef directly. She emphasized the word direct to show her sincerity. Lu Qing smiled and nodded. He remembered the question and changed the topic. Isn't there a typhoon coming soon? The Sky Capital Gardens field is half open, so there's no shelter from the rain. Where should I go for my morning exercise? Amon's mind raced as she said, Sky Capital Gardens Activity Center has a small indoor dojo. Mr. Liu, if you're sure, I can help you inform them in advance and get the key. When the time comes, you can go whenever you want. She was most afraid that Lu Qing wouldn't have any requests and she wouldn't be able to perform. Now, she couldn't wait to rush over to the Sky Capital Garden property. Okay, thank you. Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief and nodded sincerely. You're welcome. It's what I should do. Amon was overjoyed, her pretty face glowing. She saw Lu Qing's gaze turn to the stack of steamers. She tactfully said, I won't disturb your meal. I'll go settle the matter of the dojo. She took small steps back and slowly turned around. She walked towards the door with a smile. Only when she saw Huang Bin's annoyed expression did she restrain her expression. With her head held high, she walked past him in a dignified manner and left gracefully. She finally understood that in the workplace, it wasn't good to always give in and be a good person. You couldn't abandon your kindness to others, but you had to fight for what you had to fight for. Otherwise, not only would others trample on you, but they would also mock you. Huang Bin had been in the assistant group for many years. Although he wanted to immediately go up to Lu Qing and exchange a few pleasantries and ask if the driver yesterday was satisfactory, his rich experience told him that under the premise that Amon had just disturbed him, he would only trigger the emotion of annoyance if he went up himself. The loss outweighed the gain. He secretly gritted his teeth and silently left the restaurant. Lu Qing didn't notice the workplace struggles of others at all. He chatted with his little fairy while enjoying his breakfast. He left the restaurant at 9:10 a.m. and entered the dance stage training room to continue comprehending and practicing his unique skills. He returned to his exclusive resting room at 10:50 a.m. and had a video call with Yan Zhika. He returned to the restaurant at 12:30 a.m. and bumped into Tu Zheng coming out. Dinner gathering? I've already booked a private room in the club. Is it okay to leave at 6 p.m.? Tu Zheng's chiseled face was gentle and smiling. Sure. Lu Qing agreed readily since he had nothing to do. After that, he, who had just come into contact with powerful martial arts, was so excited that he didn't take an afternoon nap. He spent the entire afternoon in the training room and the training room. Boom. In the void of his fist, scarlet flames rolled in all directions, hiding a golden color. Lu Qing nodded in satisfaction and kept his stance. He had finally mastered the 13th move of the fire sect, Scorch. Everything is difficult at the beginning. The progress of the remaining 20 over unique skills would be faster than this. Well, excluding the most difficult ones, swoosh. Warm water dripped down and washed away his fatigue. Lu Qing changed his clothes and carried his bag. He went to the reserve team's training room in the northwest to meet up with Wang Yuan and the rest. I've already informed the assistant team. There's a car to send you guys there. I'll bring Jianlin and Xiaoluo. Tu Jing waved his hand generously. The 6 Inhumans of the reserve team arrived at a luxurious clubhouse without a word along the way. Just as they pushed open the door to the private room, Lu Qing, Lu Xiaofei and the rest were stunned because there was already someone sitting inside. It was a bald man who looked like half of an iron tower, a first-pin expert with fierce eyebrows, Optimus Prime Long Zhen. Compared to yesterday's meeting in the meeting room, Long Zhen didn't release his aura, but it made people tremble involuntarily. It was like an animal meeting its natural enemy or a weakling meeting a mafia boss. Long Zhen didn't care about the shock of Jia Lu and the rest. He casually cut off the end of his cigar and turned it over the fire. Master Long took good care of me when I was in the reserve team. He often gave me pointers and can be considered as half a master to me. Tu Zheng explained with a smile. When he heard that I was going to hold a welcome dinner for Lu Qing, he said he wanted to come and join in the fun. There aren't many physical invulnerability experts like him who don't put on airs. Isn't that so? Among all the physical invulnerability experts I've seen, those who put on airs are few and far between. Maybe he doesn't want to put on airs in front of me? Lu Qing criticized in his heart. He cupped his fists and greeted him calmly. Lu Xiaofei and the rest came to their senses. Keeping their shock, they followed suit and greeted, Greetings, Master Long. Have a seat. Long Zhen's mouth broke into a wide arc. He pointed to the cigar box at the side and said to Lu Qing, Want one? He didn't show any authority, but there was an irresistible aura about him. Who could reject the goodwill of a first-pin expert? It's okay. I don't smoke. Lu Qing took a light breath and smiled calmly. What are you afraid of? You're no longer at the foundation tempering stage, said Long Zhen as he took a puff of the cigar and slowly exhaled the smoke. Without waiting for Lu Cheng's reply, he chuckled and said, "Your ice mirror has reached the level of encountering gods in the void, self-reflection, right?" As soon as he said that, Lu Xiaofei and the rest were shocked. Physical invulnerability experts wouldn't be interested in such a level. However, for inhumans it might not be possible. Among all the fourth pins present, other than Tu Zheng, no one else could achieve such a level. He had only been an inhuman for a year, right? As expected of the heavenly son of the era, this person must have specially researched my competition videos and put in a lot of effort. A first pin expert like Long Zhen wouldn't be so bored. Who could it be? Lu Cheng looked at Tu Zheng beside him and nodded thoughtfully. Yes. Isn't that settled then? At this level, controlling your body, removing the dirt and cleansing your lungs is a piece of cake. Why would you be afraid of a cigarette? Said Long Zhen with a half-smile. Lu Cheng gave a self-deprecating laugh and replied firmly, "I really don't like it." Long Zhen didn't say anything else and turned to ask Wang Yuan and the rest. No one rejected him. In an instant, the room was filled with smoke and looked like a fairyland. Lu Cheng didn't mind. His lungs were so strong that they could cleanse themselves. Not smoking directly was just a matter of attitude and principle. When the cold dishes were served, Tu Zheng smiled and said, "I brought a few good wines. You guys take a look and see what you want to drink." After Lu Xiaofei and the rest made their choices, Lu Cheng waved his hand and said awkwardly, "I don't drink." "Don't drink? Which swordsman in ancient times didn't drink?" sneered Long Zhen. Lu Cheng shook his head and said, "I'm used to it. There's no need to break it. Besides, compared to alcohol, I prefer other flavors." "You're so boring." Long Zhen didn't force him. He chuckled and said, "If it were any other job, if you don't drink, would you dare to not drink when the leader stares at you? I'm working hard to practice martial arts so that I can have the right to refuse." Lu Cheng imitated what he said back then and smiled calmly. Long Zhen nodded slowly. "You're right." The grouper and abalones were served one by one. When the banquet started, Tu Zheng livened up the conversation. Long Zhen also talked about the things that happened in the reserve team from time to time. Both the guests and the host enjoyed themselves. After dinner, Long Zhen didn't stay for long. He said that he was going to other places in the club to relax. Under Tu Zheng's invitation, Lu Cheng and the rest went to the KTV on the third floor to sing for a while. After Lu Xiaofei and Jia Lu played for a while and left, Tu Zheng smiled and went out for a few minutes. Not long after he came back, the door opened. More than 10 girls walked in and stood in a row in front of the big screen. Some were young and beautiful, some were charming, and some were fat and thin. They all had their own flavors. The quality is not bad. You guys can choose first. Tu Zheng leaned back in a relaxed manner and rested his arms on the back of the sofa. "I don't need it." Lu Cheng was the first to answer. "What are you afraid of? What's wrong with a man acting outside?" Tu Zheng chuckled. Seeing that Wang Yuan and Sun Jianlin had started to choose, Lu Cheng took a deep breath and stood up. "I have something to do. I'll leave first. You guys have fun." After he finished, he exchanged glances with Tu Zheng. He didn't panic at all and was calm. "Go ahead if you have something to do," Tu Zheng said slowly. Lu Cheng nodded and left. After he left, Sun Jianlin drank with his female companion as if nothing had happened. He smiled and said, "Leader 2, you're too anxious. We don't know each other well enough. He's still a kid who just left school." "That's true. However, I can see that Lu Cheng is a person with a strong will. He's a martial artist who is used to restraining himself." Wang Yuan sighed and hugged his two female companions. Tu Zheng had a beautiful girl sitting beside him. His eyes were half closed and he didn't say a word. July 3rd, Friday afternoon. Lu Cheng was having his meal when Wang Yuan leaned over and smiled. "The reserve team has a weekly sparring session in the afternoon. Do you want to join?" Lu Cheng, who had mastered another unique skill of the fire sect, was itching to join. "Sure." Chapter 545. 2:30 p.m., first floor of the reserve team's training ground in the northwest area. Tu Zheng smiled and said to Lu Cheng, "Everyone has been training hard every day and neglecting actual combat. Sparring with each other can help verify what we have learned and find problems. After all, our martial artists are not of a high rank and can only help to simulate the style of sparring. Therefore, the reserve team has always had this tradition. When there are no matches, we will organize a sparring session on Friday afternoons." This was also an effective way to increase the competitive atmosphere in the reserve team. "Understood." Our martial arts club used to do similar exercises, Lu Qing replied casually. However, it wasn't as formal as today. The strength of both parties was also lower. Alright then. Let's draw lots. Since we are going to verify what we have learned, there is no need to hide it. I reckon we will be exhausted after one round. Tu Jing picked up a piece of white paper on the table and scribbled a few numbers. He tore it into 6 pieces and messed them up. The one who gets 1 will be the first to spar. The one who gets 2 will be the second, and the one who gets 3 will be the last. They were in a small office attached to the training ground. There were surveillance cameras that had to be turned on to record the situation of the sparring session. It would be convenient for them to observe the process and analyze problems from the perspective of a bystander. It was much more formal than the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. Lu Qing picked up a random piece and opened it. He couldn't help but smile. 3. You can only be the last. 1. Tu Jing flashed the piece of paper. Team 2, why are we meeting again? Sun Jianlin bared his teeth. The piece of paper in his hand clearly had the word 1. This is called fate. Tu Jing laughed and turned to look at Lu Xiaofei and the rest. Who got 3? Me. Wang Yuan chuckled. He flipped his palm and revealed the piece of paper. Not bad. An experienced fourth pin mighty one. Lu Qing nodded. He was looking forward to the upcoming sparring session. Stepping into the arena room that was specially built for the training ground, Lu Qing leaned against the bulletproof and heat-proof glass. He glanced at the cameras everywhere and watched as Tu Jing and Sun Jianlin walked to the center and took up their stances. Wang Yuan acted as the temporary referee. Lowering his waist and releasing his aura, Tu Jing's smile disappeared. Golden red flames seemed to be leaping out of his eyes. Even though they were dozens of meters apart, Lu Qing could feel the air getting hotter. It was like when he passed by an iron-smelting furnace when he was young and happened to see red water flowing out. It was as if the air conditioner in the training ground had malfunctioned and the high temperature from outside seeped in, slightly changing the environment with his aura. As expected of a mighty one close to physical invulnerability, Lu Qing nodded slightly. At the same time, he was filled with admiration and motivation to catch up. The battle between Tu Jing and Sun Jianlin lasted for 3 minutes. Tu Jing, who was obviously holding back, eventually defeated his opponent. He even gave Sun Jianlin some pointers as the team leader. This allowed Lu Qing, who was watching from the side, to have a new understanding of some of the moves in the dance stage chapter of the fire sect. It could be seen that other than the fire sect techniques, Tu Jing had also learned the secret art that combined the golden bell shield and the undying flesh body. However, his core force was the fire force, which couldn't fully support the other martial arts, making the effect seem rather weak. Similarly, Sun Jianlin, who had completed the mutation with the Emperor Yin force, couldn't fully display the wonders of the dark sect's flickering light passing shadow. In the second battle, Jialu used a weapon. It was a short sword made of alloy that was about the length of a forearm. It had a faint red glow to it. When it was swung, sparks flew and it was exceptionally terrifying. Lu Qing admired her swordsmanship with great interest and studied how she had integrated the secret arts of the fire sect into it. According to his master's description, at the inhuman stage, the power of punches and slashes was similar to the power of weapons. The greatest use of the latter was actually to expand the range of close-range attacks. An inch longer, an inch stronger. Of course, as an external object, there was a gap between weapons and the force that one had cultivated. If one used it directly without polishing it, it would only spoil the weapon. Unless one allowed flames and other substances to attach to the surface of the weapon, it wouldn't be very effective. Therefore, after obtaining a weapon, if a martial artist wanted to use it, they would have to follow the ancient method and constantly nourish it with the force. The modern theory was that through the repeated scouring of the force with low intensity, the molecular structure and composition of the material would gradually change. In the end, it would resemble the skin and muscles of the owner, to a certain extent, and complete the conduction with less loss. It was precisely because of this that even if one obtained a divine weapon that had been used by a physical invulnerability expert before, under the circumstances of incompatibility, it could only be used as a slightly sharper kitchen knife. Every master who specialized in weapons had a few companions that they had nourished for many years. In order to prevent damage, they had to start all over again. With the breakthrough in the research of bionics materials, custom-made weapons could greatly reduce the time needed to nourish them. This was a huge blow to the ancient style, but it was an inevitable trend in the development of the era. Scarlet light flashed and the sword shadows were like rainbows. Jia Lu's fight was spectacular and she had the upper hand for a while. Lu Xiaofei on the other hand wasn't in a hurry. She steadily defended the opening and avoided the attacks. When the opponent's momentum started to weaken, she suddenly exploded and attacked like fire. She was as fierce as the tide and instantly put the opponent in a difficult situation. After putting up a strong resistance a few times, Jia Lu still couldn't turn the situation around. Not only that, she was sinking deeper and deeper. When she was on the verge of defeat, she had no choice but to admit defeat in frustration and reflect on her mistakes in the previous battle. Tu Zheng, Yu Wangyuan, and the rest interjected from time to time, voicing their own opinions and acting as a stepping stone for others. Lu Qing liked this kind of atmosphere very much. How his teammates played in private was their own business, but when it came to martial arts they were very serious. They were in the golden age of vitality, drive, experience, mentality and other factors combined together. After the exchange, Yu Wangyuan, who had been the referee for 2 rounds, stepped into the center. His muscles were firm and his face was round. Lu Qing, who was full of anticipation, didn't waste any time. He flicked his navy blue martial arts suit and left the edge unhurriedly. Tu Zheng, who had taken a break, would be the referee for this round. Seeing that both parties had gotten into their stances and were ready to go, he waved his right hand and exhaled loudly. Begin. Lu Xiaofei, Jia Lu and the rest were energized. They paid more attention to the battle than before. After Lu Cheng's battle with Peng Liyun at the end of April, he hadn't fought for more than 2 months. At that time he already had the strength of a quasi-4th pin. What level was he at now? They didn't doubt that Lu Cheng had the possibility of winning. There wasn't much difference between a quasi-4th pin and a veteran 4th pin. The only difference was training, accumulation and battle experience. Yu Wangyuan was definitely more powerful, but he wouldn't be so powerful to the extent of crushing his opponent. Both parties would have a 70-30 chance of winning. Improvisation was equally important. Following Tu Zheng's shout, Yu Wangyuan pounced out crazily. He dashed left and right in small steps, like a huge fire burning in a prairie. There wasn't anywhere for him to escape and he could only take it head-on. Lu Qing had the heart to experience it. Like Peng Liyun, he chose not to dodge. He lowered his waist, gathered his qi and blood, and exploded his Dan force. Wearing a scarlet-red flame glove on his right fist, he swung it heavily and powerfully. Yu Wangyuan lowered his back and suddenly rushed forward. His speed reached the peak in an instant. During this process he made use of the inertia to attack. He gathered his qi and blood and expanded his arm. Fire force condensed and poured into Yu Wangyuan's fist. He didn't release it outwards. Instead, it gently exploded from within, creating a huge pushing force that accelerated forward. In an instant, Yu Wangyuan's left fist increased in speed. It dragged out a shadow and hit Lu Cheng's flame glove. Boom! Scarlet light scattered like rain. Lu Qing felt that his opponent's strength was surging like the sea and mountains. It was hard for him to take it head-on. He could only step on the ice crystals and slide backwards. With a slurp, he seemed to be running backwards. The 15th style of the fire sect, jet spray. During the winter break, Dong Xiaoyang had also used this move to defeat Lu Cheng. It was an imitation of the 1-inch punch technique. It used the controlled explosion of one's own fire force to replace the bouncing of the joints and stretching of the fascia to create a double pushing force. It could be used to change the part of the attack or to stack up pure strength. It was a rather practical secret art. With one move, the flames scattered like rain and the person retreated like a push. Yu Wangyuan had gained the upper hand. He took a step forward and threw his right fist forward, doing jet spray again. As expected, Yu Wangyuan's strength is much stronger than Lu Cheng's. Lu Xiaofei, Jia Lu, and Sun Jianlin nodded as they watched. They heaved a sigh of relief. Once an expert makes a move, it's easy to tell if he's skilled or not. Jet spray was Yu Wangyuan's best secret art. It could be used until the opponent admitted defeat. Lu Qing, who was sliding backwards, was getting more and more excited. He immediately circulated his qi and blood to stimulate the corresponding parts. Gotcha. Facing Yu Wangyuan's jet spray attack, he didn't retreat but advanced instead. He took half a step forward and stretched his body, turning into a giant with bulging muscles. He swung his arm and smashed down with his fist from a condescending position. The simplified battle formula. Chapter 546. Bam. The two fists collided. Both of their muscles swelled exaggeratedly, as though they were squeezing every ounce of energy out of their bodies. At the point of contact, air currents formed and turned into waves, spreading wildly in all directions. The loud, dull sound shook the transparent glass dozens of meters away, causing them to vibrate continuously. Clang, clang, clang. Yu Wangyuan's arm went numb and he swung back. His right fist made a cracking sound as his slightly deformed bones recovered. In terms of absolute strength, the double push was slightly weaker than the simplified fighting formula. Of course, this was under the situation where both parties were of similar realms and levels. His body shook and he was about to lose his balance. Yu Wangyuan quickly retracted his qi and blood, stabilizing his center of gravity. He then spurted his Dan force again, directing it to his right arm. At this moment he saw Lu Cheng's body suddenly grow taller. His clothes outlined the shape of all his muscles. His exposed skin, other than his face, had bulging veins that were green and black. His fist carried this violent force, swinging down as though he was smashing a mountain. Clenching his teeth, Yu Wangyuan pulled his arm back, raised his forearm and quickly swung his fist in reverse to meet his opponent. Just as they were about to reach each other, the fire force exploded gently, creating a turbulent pushing force that allowed the fist to rise into the air like a rocket. With a bang, it broke through the air barrier and hit Lu Cheng's punch. With a crack, Yu Wangyuan's feet sank into the ground. Cracks extended outwards, intersecting with the scars from the two previous battles. His body trembled at high speed, his muscles undulating as though he was dispelling the remaining energy. As an experienced mighty one of the fourth pin, he wasn't disheartened by the setback. Without thinking, he did the Dan concentration again, preparing for an outburst. This time he was going to use another technique of jet spray to turn the tables. When there was another chance, the fire sect was also very good at stimulating outbursts. It was just that he hadn't reached the realm of encountering gods in the void, so he couldn't use secret arts that were harmful to his body continuously like Lu Cheng. It was at this moment that Lu Cheng seemed to have predicted his next move based on his body language and the condition of his muscles. Instead of using the simplified fighting formula, he gathered and released his Dantian Qi and launched a low kick with his right foot. It was fast and vicious. This made Yu Wangyuan, who was still stuck in the ground, feel his heart tighten. He activated the fire force in advance and pulled his arm back fiercely, moving his back and pulling his left leg up. He tightened his muscles and resisted with a bang. His body was obviously swaying. The kick landed. Lu Cheng swung his waist and his left leg stepped forward, as if he was stepping and kicking at the same time. Pa pa pa, 1 kick, 2 kicks, 3 kicks. Lu Cheng's 2 legs attacked consecutively, as though a chilly northern wind had been stirred up, forcing Yu Wangyuan to retreat step by step. During this process, Yu Wangyuan only felt that his ankles were starting to stiffen. The coldness slowly seeped into his flesh and blood. The surrounding space was becoming more and more like ice, sticking to his movements, making it harder and harder for him to dodge. A layer of sparkling and translucent light appeared on the ground, as if it was a cold winter square that had been watered. The 17th move of the ice sect, polar ground. Thump, thump, thump. Lu Cheng's feet gradually became heavier. The layer of ice thickened and the chill intensified. Yu Wangyuan didn't wait any longer. He made a decision on the spot. A reddish gold light flashed in his eyes. His right leg, which was dodging, suddenly stomped heavily on the ground. However, this powerful stomp didn't cause any tremors. Instead, it caused the surroundings to become strangely stagnant. Boom. Dozens of centimeters in front of where Yu Wangyuan's feet landed, where Lu Cheng's body was, the sound of air expanding suddenly erupted from the surface of the limestone. A reddish gold pillar of fire rose into the air. The temperature was extremely high and the flames were intense. The 28th move of the fire sect, Burning God. Before the flames had risen, Lu Cheng had already stopped in his tracks. He bent his back and narrowly avoided the flames of the Burning God. The flames flew into the air, sticking close to his body. They turned into a fountain and scattered helplessly. Bam! At this moment, Yu Wangyuan had finished retracting his force. He pulled back his arm and struck Lu Cheng from the side. His fist seemed to be filled with blood, red and ferocious. Just as Lu Cheng straightened his back, moved his arm and raised his forearm to make a parry, there seemed to be an explosion from within Yu Wangyuan's right fist. His fist changed direction abruptly. Like the head of an agile snake, it strangely turned to one side and swung towards Lu Cheng's shoulder in the opposite direction. In a split second he changed the direction of his attack. Another application of the unique skill of the fire sect, jet spray. Its change of direction was entirely driven by the force generated from the explosion of the fire force. There were no signs beforehand and it was hard to predict. It was the nemesis of the characteristics of realms such as absolute reaction and encountering gods in the void. When he first imparted the ice mirror to Lu Cheng, Geyser had reminded him not to completely rely on this skill. After so many years, others weren't fools. They had already thought of ways to deceive him. There weren't many, but there were definitely some. If he blindly followed the reflection of the ice mirror, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. In the past 2 years, Lu Cheng had already established the core position of the ice mirror in his fighting style. Although he would occasionally choose to make his own judgment and not blindly trust the ice mirror, he still trusted the ice mirror in most situations. If it wasn't for the fact that he browsed through the Dan stage chapter of the fire sect a few days ago and was alarmed by the shocking application of jet spray, he probably wouldn't have remembered his master's advice. At this moment, it was inevitable that he would be flustered and make a mistake in his panic. Luckily he was already prepared. He pulled his spine and pulled back his shoulders. His entire body slanted, causing Yu Wangyuan's sudden reverse swing to hit the air with a dull thud. Yu Wangyuan's intent was like a raging fire. He expanded outwards, lowered his waist, gathered his chi and blood and swung it away. Bam! He punched with his left fist towards Lu Cheng's waist. Halfway through, his force exploded. The snake head rose, opened his 5 fingers and fangs, and tore at his opponent's arm. The double push of jet spray was an explosive force within the body. No matter how controlled it would still cause damage. Therefore, compared to the Emperor Yen force, the fire force, which was gentler and more stable, complemented it well. It could help Yu Wangyuan use it many times. Bam! 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 Yu Wangyuan's fists were sometimes straight and sometimes curved, changing and sometimes heavy. This made Lu Cheng tense up. He didn't dare to use his full strength and he didn't dare to use all of his moves. In an instant he was at a disadvantage. He dodged, turned and dodged continuously. Yu Wangyuan took a step forward and changed the direction of his fist, smashing it towards Lu Cheng's chin. Following which, he leaned his body, bent his elbow and stomped on the ground. Bam bam bam. He closed in and attacked crazily. His moves were continuous, bringing along golden red sparks, creating a strong wind. Lu Cheng is still pretty strong. Jia Lu stroked her short sword, communicating with it emotionally, and sighed softly. If it were her, she would have been in a precarious situation under Yu Wangyuan's attacks and was about to lose. They were both newbies, who had entered the high pin for less than a year. Why was the difference so huge? Yu Wangyuan's continuous attacks aren't that simple. Pay attention to the shape of the remnants of his flames, said Lu Xiaofei enviously as she tilted her head. That was a combination of experience, technique and proficiency. She couldn't be that experienced and ruthless. Jia Lu focused her gaze. Amidst the banging sounds, the streaks of golden red flames burning in mid-air seemed to have formed the outline of a flood dragon's head. Just waiting for the finishing touch, it would open its mouth and bite. Jia Lu suddenly thought of a unique skill, the 27th move of the fire sect, Red Dragon. When it was completed, the reserved fire force would be fully activated, creating an exaggerated effect of combining several attacks into one. At this moment, Lu Cheng, who was already reflected in the ice mirror, suddenly took a deep breath. The muscles on his chest all caved in. Following this force and the wind from his opponent's punch, he swung backwards and moved away in a strange manner. The flames on Yu Wangyuan's fists were burning brightly. He was about to charge forward with his fists to add the finishing touch. However, Lu Cheng's eyes flashed with bloodlust. The sharp tip of his weapon seemed to have been placed on his opponent's neck. To Lu Cheng, the simplified version of the 9 words formula might be more useful than the original version. In an intense battle, a moment's difference could be the difference between victory and defeat. Yu Wangyuan's body stiffened. His thoughts were in a mess. He didn't manage to add the finishing touch in time. The remaining fire force around him was getting weaker and weaker. Lu Cheng gathered his chi and blood and took a step forward. Wearing a scarlet-red glove on his right fist, he struck heavily from the side. After Yu Wangyuan blocked it, his Dan exploded again and his left arm rose again. Bam bam bam. He attacked with both fists. Sparks flew from his fists. They were heavy and scorching. Yu Wangyuan could only continuously retreat and block. The rhythm was completely under Lu Cheng's control. As such, even if Yu Wangyuan wanted to break free, he would be interrupted midway. If he wanted to be faster, he would be blocked by Lu Cheng's scorch-heavy punch. His footsteps and fists were one and connected tightly. Lu Cheng was like a robot. He didn't know fatigue and continued to explode. He didn't give his opponent any chance to turn the tables. Bam bam bam. After blocking for an unknown number of times, Yu Wangyuan's teeth were a little loose from the vibrations. Seeing that he had no other choice, he could only use his trump card. His breathing paused. The reddish gold in his eyes condensed and was tainted with some purple. At this moment, the ripples of Lu Cheng's ice mirror reflected the abnormality of his opponent. Without waiting any longer, he threw another, scorch-heavy punch. However, he didn't hit Yu Wangyuan's body. Instead, he hit the void between the two of them. The scarlet-red flames condensed on the surface of his fist and almost turned white. It was heavy and heavy. Whoosh! The surrounding air ignited without any wind. The raging flames collapsed towards Emperor Yan and gathered towards Yu Wangyuan. The 116th style of the fire sect, Flying Moth. This was the scorching fist. Wherever the high temperature passed, the air would be in a state of being ignited. When the time was right, the Emperor Yan force would attract the air to complete the contraction and increase the density. Once the density increased, the heat would be even stronger. The air would burn as well, like moths flying towards a candle flame. This move was rather difficult to master. Without control of the surroundings and self, there was no way to connect it. However, to Lu Cheng it was just right. Flames surged in from all directions aggressively. Yu Wangyuan's heart tightened. He gave up on his preparations and raised his hand to block. He felt that even his respiratory tract was unbearably hot. As the flying moth came, Lu Cheng had already closed in. He threw a punch from the bottom up towards the sky. Yu Wangyuan had absolute reaction and hurriedly raised his arm to block. However, he felt that his opponent's fist passed by his side and stopped at his throat. He had made a mistake in his block. Due to the difference in density due to the high temperature, his visual judgment was slightly off. And this slight difference was the difference between victory and defeat. It wasn't that there was a problem with absolute reaction. It was that he didn't extend his arm enough to block. Flying moth into the flame, illusions before death. As the flames fell, Tu Zheng was stunned for a second. He raised his hand and said, "Lu Cheng wins." Phew. Although Lu Cheng had taken me by surprise and barely won, he had displayed the strength of a true fourth pin. He has already caught up to me. Lu Xiaofei looked at the figure in the arena and was silent. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.